I think so. We'll find out when she signs on. Unmuted.
All right, are we all here? All right, we're going to call our work session to order, and Morgan has a brief statement to read.
Please listen to the following message regarding important information. Participants have been muted by the host to reduce audio feedback. Participant names must be displayed as true name or phone number, or removal will occur. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. Also, if you could turn off like notifications on your tablets and laptops and stuff, because every time it chimes, it kind of takes away from whoever's talking. So our work session tonight, we talked last month a bit about the, oh, I'm sorry, roll call.
Councilor Rose.
Here.
Councilor Wilder.
She is muted.
You see her there?
There we go.
So she's present.
Yep.
Are you there now?
Councilor Mayer.
I'm here.
Okay. Councilor Carl.
Here.
Councilor Watkins.
Here.
Councilor Ward Mullen.
Here.
Mayor Wake.
Here.
Everybody's here and accounted for.
All right, so last meeting in our work session, we talked a bit about the council rules and procedures. And you asked for some time to compare to what we currently have with what the new rules and procedures are. And so all of that was sent out to you a couple of weeks ago. So I would just like to, the plan from what we discussed last time would be to take this new rules and procedures and replace what we currently have in our rules and procedures. So I'm going to open it up for discussion. Thoughts, comments?
Okay. Did I talk over somebody? I'm sorry.
During a protest outside of Penumbra.
I think somebody else just came on. Sorry, Linda.
Oh, okay. Yeah, actually, I spent quite a bit of time on this, comparing the two. And I'm not sure really what you're looking at accomplishing here, because what I found was that with our old rules of procedure, it pretty much covers, and I can go through and give you the numbers on each one of these sections. If we're going to be doing this, pretty much anything that's in our old rules in some way or another is also in the new rules. So they don't completely intertwine, but they do overlap quite a bit. So I'm not sure why we want to throw the baby out with the bathwater, I guess, on this. What I'm wondering is two things. One, you know, if we want to do it, I think we can use the old ones and actually integrate the new ones into them a lot more easily than we could do it the other way around. And number two, is this a project that we really want to get into right now? I'm assuming that it's going to cost us a whole bunch of money to redo these things. The other concern that I have is that we are short-staffed right now, and I'm assuming that they're the ones that are going to have to be doing a lot of this work. So that's my question. I guess I've got three questions there.
Okay, well, let me try and answer your questions. First of all, I've been talking about this for a year and a half since I came on as mayor. And I just felt it was important for us to basically take what we have and really strengthen those rules and procedures. And it brings us to a place where we're all working together and with the same goals. When I went through these, I think I mentioned that I used Sherwood as a kind of a template. And then also Calabasas, California, I liked some of what they had to say. And then I took our current policies and procedures and tried to work them in there as well. So when you say combining, that's pretty much what's already been done.
You might have told us that. It would have saved me a little bit of time. Sorry.
I thought I did mention
Thanks.
that last month, but
I missed it.
sorry. What was the other question?
I'm just asking if this is really a time when we want to start doing this, when we're going to be involved in a whole bunch of other pretty time-intensive activities, and we're short-staffed in the office right now. So do we want to, the office staff is the ones that are going to be dealing with this and figuring out how to make it happen, and Walt, and do we want to spend the money on it right now? Because I don't know how much it's going to cost, but it's not going to be cheap.
And also we're looking at elections in 12 weeks where we have 3 offices of counselors, as well as the mayor, as well as the new city manager. I just really feel like we should be waiting until all the new personnel are in place before we go and start working on ordinances. And if we're going to do it at that time, it really should address all the staff at the same time and not just speak to something that could be misconstrued as punitive because it only is speaking to counselors.
Okay, so back to Linda's question. What's the time and cost for?
Well, we're currently not short-staffed. That's the first thing to note. And before I leave the office, staff internally can have the changes done. And
I cannot hear him.
well, to answer your first statement, Linda, we aren't short-staffed currently. We're at full staff, and we will be for the next 2 weeks. And before I leave the city, it will be very easy for the city staff here internally in City Hall to make any changes to the document you have before you. We can get that to Walt, and you'd have to ask Walt how many hours of his time he'd have to devote towards putting this into ordinance form. But that's for Walt to answer. But I think we could, over the next 2 weeks, pretty easily get that draft prepared for the council to consider for a vote.
Walt, any thoughts on the cost?
I would guess, Mayor, but somewhere between 2 to 5 hours of our time to incorporate, review, provide minor tweaks and corrections, and assure that there's consistency between the rules and, for instance, the charters and some of the ordinances that speak to some of the issues in the new rules.
Okay. As far as, putting this off, I guess if all of council decides that this isn't important and we should push it off, then that's going to be our choice. Like I said, I've been talking about this for 1.5 years and we just keep kicking the can down the road. And I think that, personally, I think that these rules, these procedures are important for us as a council. They will speak to how we work together. They are council rules. They shouldn't address staff. Staff rules would be a different document. I have seen several letters from constituents lately who are begging this council to work together, to come together, to find common ground that's in the best interest for the community. And I think that this document really helps us form the foundation and the ground rules for doing just that.
So you incorporated the current rules of procedure into this?
Yes.
I think, if I may say a couple of things, I think that, reading through this, I've also found that to be true, that the current rules and regulations are in there. They're woven in there quite well. I think that as far as timing wise, why would we not want to do this before we institute possibly new council members, so that they would start fresh with, rules of conduct, so to speak, as well as all the other rules and stuff that they're giving. I think waiting on this, I'm not sure I understand the purpose of waiting. I don't understand why this needs to be a big process. I think it's pretty well set out here. I don't have any problems with it. I would certainly approve it. And as far as staff, it touches on how we relate to staff. And I think that's kind of where it ends for us. We don't have any authority over any other staff other than reviewing a couple of contract hirees. Outside of that, it's kind of getting beyond our realm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess that in looking through it, and what I was maybe not clear on the process on this, it seemed like to me that it was going to be asking a lot for a lot more time than this. Apparently you guys have got it all nailed down, so it's not really that a problem.
Well, I think, most of the work's already done, so it's just a couple of hours for Walt and his team to.
Apparently it is.
Amy, any thoughts? Is Amy?
Yes, I like it. I think to Scott's point, it would be a useful thing for any new counselors coming on, as well as a new city manager, to understand that these are guidelines that we've agreed to, and it's a nice reference and reminder for even those of us who have been here for a while, as well as, so I think it would be even more useful for someone brand new coming in. I'm in support of it.
Okay. Carrie, any thoughts?
Yeah, I was just kind of curious what Linda's, what are the issues that you have with the rules of the council? Is there something in there
Well, it seemed to me that what we were doing basically with most of it was that it was just repeating what we already had, and I couldn't figure out why we were rewriting something that we already had. So apparently I was right in one sense, that I was seeing a lot of familiar stuff in here, but the reason I was seeing it, the reason I was seeing it is because it had been put in there already. I was not aware of that. So there we go.
Okay. Well, I'm agreeing with this thing also. I mean, there's a few things that was put in there. I see that the council does need to follow in, but the new people coming on, if there's any new people, they should have some guidelines to follow. So I'm supportive of this also.
Will this be a separate document from the ordinance?
This would be, no, this would be a replacement of the existing section 2.05 of the municipal code. So it would be codified. Section 2.05 would be deleted. This would be adopted and would go into the municipal code. Your original rules were adopted by ordinance, so they need to be amended by ordinance.
Okay, so it will be part of the code.
Yes,
Okay.
it will.
All right.
Any other thoughts there, Shirley?
No, I think I, got some clarification here, so I understand.
Okay. So I guess my question then is there consensus to move forward with this?
I would say so.
No. I just don't think that the timing makes any sense when we have such huge projects before us right now. We're spending time on something that many new people should have a voice in. And so, no, I don't think we should be working on this till after the first of the year.
Okay. Shirley?
I would agree to go forward as long as we keep the, I know, Walt, you said what, 2 to 5 hours of time?
I think that's
Yeah,
approximately.
I don't know what that translates to in terms of cost.
I think our billing rate is somewhat under $200 an hour.
Okay, okay. Yeah, I would agree we could go forward.
If the council wishes, I can put the rules into draft ordinance format. And I do have some 5 or 6 suggestions and that I would make that I could incorporate into the draft for council consideration and bring it back, and the council can decide if it's ripe for action or not.
Okay. Amy, move forward.
Yeah, I like Walt's suggestion.
Okay. Linda?
Yeah, fine.
Okay. Scott?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So is there any other input tonight into this document that you, as you read through it, something you'd want to change?
On a vacation.
What's that?
I want a vacation.
So we put council vacations in here?
Yeah, please.
We
The
can all take,
distinct lack of a Disney cruise, right, Gary?
That's right, Scott.
we can all take the 4th week of every month off of council duties at our own cost. So
council will work, staff will work to have that on the September 1st agenda.
okay. So we'll get this to staff. We'll get it to Walt, and we'll have it on our September.
Oh, I have something to add.
Oh,
that I
sure.
would like to see in there. In terms of counselor attendance at council meetings, I realize some folks on the council are required to travel, for their jobs from time to time and not be able to attend. I would like to have something in there because now we all have Zoom technology that to the extent that folks are out of town and unable to personally attend, that if possible, they will attend by Zoom. So
I love that idea. That's a
every
nice
effort to attend.
I think that's a great idea. And even if it was by phone, if we weren't doing Zoom.
Yeah, whatever the technology, but.
Yeah. Okay. We'll add that in. Anyone else? All right. Well, I guess we will adjourn the work session and we'll come back together at 7 o'clock for our regular session. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I wore blue so I can find myself. Is it Fozzie Bear? Is Amy muted?
Yep, I'm here.
Yeah, I like the Fozzie Bear.
Thank you.
You always have the best little pictures.
He fits my personality.
NHMP, is that the auditor?
No. That's the, natural hazard mitigation.
Oh, right.
The auditor's on the consent.
Okay. But it's a new auditor.
Yes. Won't direct us to put it under consent
Okay.
because it's not a big deal.
Okay. Are we at time? All right, let's go ahead and call the meeting to order. Start with a roll call, please.
Councilor Rhodes,
Here.
Councilor Wilder.
Here.
Councilor Mayor.
She's muted.
Okay. Councilor Carl,
Here.
Councilor Watkins. She's muted too.
We know she's here.
Councilor Ward Mullen,
Here.
Mayor Ray.
Here. So we deciphered why we have two councilors muted.
I've asked them to unmute and
Okay.
there we
There she
go.
goes. There goes Kathy. Okay.
Thanks. Sorry.
All right. I just want to make sure we can hear you. All right. So Morgan has. Oh, we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance first. Sorry. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
States
of
of
America
America,
and
to
to
the
the
republic
republic
for
for which it
which it
stands,
stands,
one nation,
nation,
under God, indivisible,
indivisible,
with
with
liberty and
liberty and
justice
justice
for
for
all.
all.
All right, Morgan.
Please listen carefully. This message is lengthy but has important procedural information. Before we begin the public comment portion of the meeting, please note that participants have been muted by the host to reduce audio feedback interference during the recorded meeting. For public or participants' names must be displayed as true name or phone number, or removal will occur. For public comments, the city truly wants to hear the public voice and encourages all citizens who wish to make a public comment to participate. If you wish to make a comment and have joined using a computer or mobile app, please use the raise hand function so the host can see who wishes to speak. If you are not using a computer and are listening to the meeting using the provided telephone number, please hit *9 on your telephone keypad to use the raise hand function. When it's your turn to speak, the host will call the participant's name. The participant may unmute their microphone and clearly state their name and address for the record. Each participant will have 3 minutes to speak. Behavior must meet City Council meeting rule number 5, stating when addressing the City Council, speakers shall be respectful and avoid using profanity, threatening language, or verbal attacks. Anyone found to violate any of these rules will be removed. Given the nature of the Zoom system, participants may not be called in the order their hand was raised. However, rest assured that every individual who raised their hand will be given the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Morgan. All right. I have one change, one addition to the agenda. We're going to talk about an Oregon 47 ballot question tonight. So we'll add that as letter J under section 8. Are there any other changes or additions to the agenda? Okay.
I have a clarification about citizen comment. I know that that land use decisions are an entity unto themselves legally, and so could we clarify about when the appropriate time is for citizen comment on each issue?
Yes, I will do that. So after we get through our appointments, our committee appointments, then we will do general citizen comments. And I will ask if you're online to talk about the land use rezoning issue, that you save your comments until we've actually opened the hearing and asked for comments on the land use hearing. So let's go to ceremonies, appointments, and announcements. We have 2 applications here. We'll deal with them both at the same time. And I'm going to try really hard not to butcher this first name. But Guillermo Brandeo is applied for the Planning Commission. He's reviewed the Planning Commission training handbook. He and I have had a conversation. I think he will be a great addition to our Planning Commission. And Paul Junker has also applied to be on the Oregon 47 Ad Hoc Committee. And he has some previous experience with the city of Carlton with some of our other ad hoc committees. So I'm asking to appoint him as well. So if council has any questions, or if you'd like to make a motion to appoint these two.
Any comments from anybody?
Doesn't sound like it.
Then I would make a motion that we approve the appointment of both of these gentlemen to the Planning Commission and the Highway 47 Ad Hoc Committee respectively.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Both are appointed to those respective committees. Letter C, the Citizen Committee for City Manager hiring process. Dennis, how are we?
If the council has a consensus to form the ad hoc committee, then we will advertise that availability and collect applications, just like we have in the past with other ad hoc committees. And then as those come in, I would guess that we would have enough for the council to at least be considering a couple appointments on September 1st.
Okay. So did you all hear that?
Not really.
Okay, sorry. We have one microphone in the room for everybody. So this is about appointing a citizen committee to help us in the selection of a new city manager. What we're asking for tonight is to give permission to staff to go ahead and advertise that this committee is available, allow people to apply for the committee, and then hopefully we can appoint folks on the 1st of September when we come together again.
So Brian, I would add that that we make sure that those folks, by the time that the deadline comes for submitting a petition to run either for council or mayor, that those folks are invited to participate.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea, Shirley.
And also when they reply, actually, we can have it like a open city where people can hear what they have to say about their city, manager positions and all that kind of stuff, to where we just know what they're capable of doing, citizens be involved. We used to do it at the fire hall, have a big open house for them. City manager.
Come in, are you talking after we've selected them for the committee?
I think before we select them.
Okay.
We've had big citizens come in, and vote for them and stuff, kind of give their comments.
Are you talking about for the city manager or for the committee?
Manager.
Yeah.
We haven't got that far yet. Just talking about forming the committee.
So my bad. My bad.
So you're suggesting, other than just the ad hoc committee, is having another group come in during the
No, I'm sorry. My bad. I
Okay.
misunderstood what was said.
Okay.
Have we considered putting an ad in some professional association for this type of work, just so we can start taking a look at applicants and looking at those position descriptions and those traits that we'll be looking for?
Walter, are you there?
Yes, this is typically an advertising process that the city would go through in conjunction with a recruitment consultant if it selects a recruitment consultant. Since your last meeting, an RFP has gone out. People have been given till, I believe, the 21st, Friday, 21st of August, to submit proposals so that the city council would be in a position to move forward with a selection process. That typically the consultant would then create a process which involves advertising in professional journals, professional management organizations, and on a typically a national scale for for a city manager search. So that would be at that stage.
Sorry, Linda, go ahead.
I was going to say the citizens committee that we're discussing right now is the citizens of Carlton who will be interviewing the candidates for city manager.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, okay. I thought we were maybe talking about several different things here, so just wanted to clarify that.
So we could propose to the people on the committee some professional associations as a good source of candidates.
The consultant, I mean, we suggest the consultant.
The citizen committee, as if it's done as we did in the last selection process, they are only become involved when the final applicants are selected. There's a whole weeding out process. So the citizen committee is not part of the process from the very beginning, just when it comes to the finals.
Yeah.
And we can, I think, well, first of all, let's talk about getting this citizen committee put together if that's what we want to do. And then we can talk about everything else that goes into this.
Well, why wouldn't we want the citizen committee? I guess I'm assuming we're going to do that.
If I have consensus from council, we will direct staff to move forward with that.
Yeah, consensus for me.
Second.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right, sounds like we have consensus then, and we'll move forward with creating the ad hoc citizens committee. As far as the rest of the process goes, I think we laid it out. We have the RFP out, and by the 21st, we should have those back in. I've asked Amy and Shirley if they would help me check references on those firms as they come back. And then we're hoping that the following Tuesday that we would convene a special meeting. Council would select the 2 or 3 firms that we want to use, 3 firms, and ask them to come for interviews during our work session on the 1st of September. And from there, then we can choose which firm we want to go with. Does that answer the question?
Okay, I think I missed something there. So the deadline for the RFPs for the search agencies would be August 21st.
Correct.
And then you said the Tuesday after that, you'd weed them out, and the Tuesday after that, we'd do the interviews for the which one we wanted to take.
No, the Tuesday after that, we would hold a special meeting and council would go through them. And based on what we're finding and what we see, then we would decide 3 of the firms, maybe 4, that we would want to interview. And then we would get them to come back in the following week at our September 1st meeting for interviews.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Sure. Any other questions or comments on that process? Okay. We will move forward to citizen comments. And again, this is any comments that are not related to the public hearing on the land use issue. So is there anyone there that would like to speak?
We have Lottie Jean Peachtree.
Lottie? Okay, go ahead and unmute. Lottie Peachtree.
This is Annette Madrid. I was wondering, since it wasn't so long ago, would it save money perhaps to use the firm that vetted the final 4 candidates in Dennis's hiring? And perhaps even, I know there's procedures and whatnot, but if any of those 3 that were left from that hiring could potentially still be interested, it might expedite the process. I don't know if that's allowed, but it was just a thought. Thank you.
You're welcome. And so the firm that we used before was the COG, the Council of Governments, Mid-Willamette Valley Council of Governments, and they are currently searching for their own director, who was a huge part of hiring Dennis, and they are not able to help us in the process at this time. Any other citizen comments?
That answers the question. Thank you.
You're welcome. Nobody else? Okay, we will move on from citizen comments. We will move to the consent agenda.
Did you approve? Sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
Move to approve.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
No.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Sorry. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. Consent agenda is approved. We'll move on to number 8, ordinances, resolutions, discussion, and action items. And the first item is the public hearing for the comprehensive plan zone change 2020-01, ordinance number 2020-727. So I will open the public hearing. I'm sorry.
No, we had it's just the way the papers are in here. We had Polly Rogers, the auditor, and I thought we missed it, but it's just
that was
kind of
part of the consent agenda.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
That's okay. All right. So the purpose of the hearing, that's that, right?
The hearing.
Okay. All persons testifying shall be deemed parties to the application and must provide their name and full mailing address if they wish to be notified of a decision, continuances, appeals, or other procedural actions required by the code. The city zoning code specifies applicable criteria to be relied upon in the making of a decision. Those criteria and findings of fact are in the city staff report. Public testimony should be limited to those criteria and findings of fact or to other city or state land use standards that the person testifying believes apply to the proposed land use action. Failure to raise an issue in person or in writing with sufficient detail to afford the hearing body and parties to the hearing an opportunity to respond to that issue precludes appeal to the city council or land use board or to seek damages in circuit court due to a condition of approval. Before the conclusion of the initial evidentiary hearing, any participant may ask the council for an opportunity to present additional relevant evidence or testimony that is within the scope of the hearing. The hearings body shall grant the request by scheduling a date to finish the hearing, a continuance, to a time and date certain, or by leaving the record open for additional evidence or testimony. So we will call for, this will be the call for counselors to declare conflicts of interest, abstentions, bias, or ex parte contact. And I've asked Walt if he would address the ex parte and bias issues for us before we begin.
Mr. Mayor, you asked that I briefly review with the council the issue of ex parte contacts and the concept that it involves. I chose to do so by taking a page from the League of Oregon Cities handbook for city councilors, where it talks about 3 concepts. One is the concept of impartial tribunal. The second concept is ex parte contacts between the members of the governing body who are going to be making a decision and persons not attending or not at the public hearing. And third, the associated concept of bias. First of all, all persons, city councils have 2 types of processes they go through. One is legislative, where they look at policies and new procedures that are of general application. In those circumstances, those are essentially political decisions and people are entitled to, and they're encouraged to call, send letters, or otherwise attempt to influence the governing body's decision. The other type of decision-making is quasi-judicial, which is what we are in tonight. In contrast, a quasi-judicial decision is a legal judgment on a specific case which affects individual rights and property rights. The parties to such a case are entitled to fair, equal, and unbiased consideration and decision. The concept of ex parte contacts, which is a contact with a governing body regarding a land use application outside of the public hearing process. And these contacts are, as the council knows, discouraged. However, sometimes they cannot be avoided. And because they can result in undue influence, and because all parties don't have the opportunity to hear and respond to those comments, if a member of the governing body has an ex parte contact, they have an obligation at the commencement of the hearing to disclose that ex parte contact and a summary of, or brief summary of the substance of the contact. Communication with local government staff regarding an application outside the hearing process is not considered ex parte contact under the applicable statutes. Finally, if a person has ex parte contacts, they have to make a decision, and this is a decision they have to make for themselves, as to whether or not they have, as a result of that, acquired a bias with regard to the outcome of the application. Bias is considered to be prejudice or non-objective determination. And if that's the case, council members under the statute are required to recuse themselves, declare that they believe that they cannot make an objective decision, and recuse themselves. They are not required to do so unless they feel they have that, they are in that pickle. So what I would say in summary is that if any of the council members have had outside contacts that are not part of the hearing process, not part of the public hearing tonight, that this is the time for you to disclose those and determine whether or not you think you have bias. If you don't have bias, you're perfectly able to proceed with being a decision maker. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thanks, Walt. So I will ask if there's any conflicts of interest, abstentions, bias, or ex parte contact.
Mr. Mayor, if I could launch in here real quick. I've received a number of emails through my city email account, most of which have the same substance, which is in opposition to this for various delineated reasons, which I believe most of those will be entered into the public record, if I'm correct, none of which has affected my ability to make an unbiased decision in this matter.
Thank you, Scott.
Go.
Go ahead, Linda, go ahead.
Either one, it doesn't matter.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I would certainly declare ex parte contact with basically the letters that Scott mentioned. Certainly we've all read all of those. Just walking around town and talking to people, talking to some of the people who will, I think, be testifying here tonight. I don't feel that anything that has been said is necessarily going to affect my decision, depending, of course, on what I hear from the engineers and what I hear from that end of the spectrum, which I haven't heard much from, but that's why I'm kind of trying to listen. So there we go. I don't feel that I do have a bias.
This is Shirley. I would declare an ex parte contact in the sense that I toured the property, and while there was a group of people touring the property and some of those folks were citizens of Carlton, I don't feel that that has affected my decision making in any way, any more than receiving the letters in our city email. I mean, it's just all information coming to me. Doesn't impact, and my decision making is based on everything I observe and read, including those emails, and make a decision.
I would declare the same as well. received a lot of information, had a lot of conversations about this, and it has not biased me.
My declaration of ex parte contact, in addition to the emails, I attended a citizen group discussion. I listened to the discussion and did not participate, and I don't feel that that biased me in any way in my decision.
And the same for me. I'm the same way. It's like I've listened to people, I heard them. I just got the letters, but I'm not biased about any of this, and I feel good about my decision, what I feel.
Okay. And for me, first of all, I have to declare that I have a potential conflict of interest as I'm a business owner in Carlton, and new housing, new residents may increase my business. And so I was in contact with the state and was advised just to declare a potential conflict of interest, but it will not affect my ability to be open and judge this. I also have some ex parte contact. On the 21st of May, Linda Watkins asked to meet with me. She wanted to discuss the zone change. At that point, I backed away from this discussion because I was concerned. I'm still talking, please. I was concerned about serial meeting rules. She had declared that she'd met with some counselors. She'd also met with some planning commissioners. And I was wary of having any further discussion. Had conversation with Susan Terrell and Felix Madrid, who are on the meeting tonight, and I'm sure we'll hear from them. I've had numerous conversations with residents. I've seen the letters. I've had folks tell me that we shouldn't do it. I've had folks tell me that we should do it. None of them have changed my position at this moment. I'm still open to what's going to be said tonight. I did have contact with Grant Erickson, one of our planning commissioners, the day of the planning commission's vote on this issue, and he asked me for my opinion on the development prior to the meeting. And I did not share my opinion, but I encouraged Grant to follow the guidelines for commissioners and to make his decision in the quasi-judicial hearing format. Also, I did meet with Kevin Herwick, the chair of the Planning Commission. I don't remember that we actually talked about this issue, but nothing we talked about would have changed my position at all. So, anybody else have anything else they'd like to declare? Okay. Then we will call for any audience objections to jurisdiction. Any challenges regarding a counselor's ability to make an impartial decision? Have anybody with a hand up?
I see no hands.
Okay. Then we will move on to the applicant's report and presentation.
Yes. Thank you. I think the presentation was scheduled to have me begin. I'm Mark Hoyt, Sherman, Johnny, and Hoyt, 693 Chemeketa Street Northeast, Salem, Oregon, 97302. I represent the applicant here in regards to this land use application. I was asked to lead off because there is obviously a lot of passion associated with this application, and we think that's wonderful. People love the community of Carlton. They want to see it grow. They want to see it prosper. So does my client. Steve Ryman has been developing in the area for a long time. He's very respectful of all of the issues that are being raised. But one of the things we want to make sure we focus on tonight is what is actually before the City Council. The only thing being addressed tonight is the transition of property that is within the urban growth boundary in the City of Carlton from a designated holding zone that was applied to the land until that time. The conditions warranted that property be taken into the development inventory of the city and rezoned for development. So the narrow question presented tonight is, should this property be rezoned into R2 and R3 property as requested by the applicant? Nothing can be done to the property. It does not authorize any construction. It does not authorize any land division. It does not authorize any physical alteration of the property in any way. All of those things will be briefly addressed here because we believe it's important that people understand what the long-term plan is. But those plans are not set in stone at this stage. They are concepts that are being presented to the city so there's an understanding of what will be proposed later on, and people aren't being asked to approve something in the dark. But there is no specific authorization that will come from this. This land could be asked to be rezoned as industrial land. It could be asked to be rezoned as commercial land. Those are not the requests. The request is to rezone this property as residential ground. And if you look at the configuration of the property and its location within the city, which we discussed in a few minutes, I think you'll see that that is a very sensible request and designation for the city in terms of its long-term growth. One of the things that we have to be conscious of is, as we all live, as we are keenly aware right now, in a world where there are certain state government edicts that require certain people, certain cities to do certain things. And Oregon land use law is one of those areas. The state law designates that cities must establish an urban growth boundary. It designates that cities must preserve land within that urban growth boundary for later development. And it designates that development must occur, residential development, inside those urban growth boundaries. We cannot go outside the urban growth boundaries under state law imposed on the city. So the city's position is to look at its future and say, how does this fit within our city plans? So with that in context, the question is, will this land be needed in the long term for residential development? And you'll hear some information presented shortly that demonstrates the city of Carlton is in need of housing. And it's in need of housing in multifamily as well as single family housing. So it seems that redesignating this land from agricultural holding, which does not mean that the land will be used for agricultural purposes long term, nor does it mean that it's been designated as suitable for agricultural use. It means that the land was, until needed for development, inside the UGB used for agriculture. So the narrow question is, should it be converted to residential zoning? And one of the issues that has come up in a lot of the discussion, and it's a very legitimate and reasonable question, is, are developers paying their fair share in terms of development? And is this developer paying his fair share in terms of development? And again, there is a system imposed by state law that assures that that is going to be the case. There are what are called system development charges. And when cities put together their UGB, they are defining what their city will look like. Inside that UGB, they define water improvements, sewer improvements, road improvements, park improvements, and they define associated estimated costs of constructing those improvements. As land is developed within the city, developers pay their share of those costs. And in addition to their share of the costs for the entire city's plan, they pay their share or they develop their individual property. So a developer is paying more than or doing more than just as what is on their property. They are making contributions towards others. And if you look at the fees associated with this particular project in conjunction with the J.R. Meadows 1 to the north, J.R. Meadows 1 will generate over $1,144,000 in system development charges for the city of Carlton that will be used to improve and enhance its facilities. And phase 2 will generate over $1,836,000 in system development charges that will be available to the city to improve their systems identifier. So in total, it's almost $3 million in money being paid to the city by the developer, subject to credits and other things that may be applied, but for the most part, $3 million that will be paid towards development for needed services. So with that in mind, the thing to think about here is this is a public process. This phase, and Oregon land use is very open. There's been a lot of argumentation and a lot of citation to the fact that the Oregon process is supposed to be open. And I want to commend the city staff, but I think they have done an excellent job of trying to make this process open. It always feels like it is not, that somebody got left out of the communication, that somebody didn't hear from somebody on something. From my observation, the staff has been very diligent in responding to citizens, making citizens aware of comments. The staff tried to facilitate a meeting between the developer and citizens. The citizens asked for a separate process to be established as part of that meeting. That separate process would not be consistent with Oregon land use law and would subject not only the city, but my client to potential problems in this process. And so unfortunately, because of the citizens' demands, we weren't able to make that meeting work. But the developer has worked hard to try and work with the community and present this issue and be cooperative. And to my mind, the staff has done a very good job of responding to and trying to help citizens get the information they need so they can participate. And I would say that based on the information and the comments that have been provided to you, you have ample evidence that citizens have had a very significant opportunity to comment. But the things that are before the city tonight for consideration are only those related to this property and whether or not it should be rezoned to R2 and R3 as requested. Issues related to impacts of development, issues related to land alteration, issues related to tree preservation, issues related to parks. Those are issues that will be addressed. Those are issues that will be part of specific applications with specific proposals so that impacts can be measured and appropriate considerations addressed. But as of tonight, this is a 30,000-foot question that is solely about, should this property that is inside the urban growth boundary that by state law is designated for development be rezoned to allow residential development in a configuration, in a manner subject to conditions that will be determined in subsequent actions when there is definitive direct design information available to evaluate the concerns regarding water, sewer, environmental impacts, and the rest. And those are all very legitimate concerns. We don't criticize anyone for raising those. There's obviously a lot of passion associated with them. But in this process, as Walt talked about at the beginning, Mr. Gowell, the city attorney, there is a specific defined standard that is being judged, and the city council sits as the judges for that defined standard. And those other concerns are legitimate, but they are not for this evening. So with that, I will turn the stage over to AKS Engineering, who has worked diligently with the staff as well as with the developer to put this project together. And thank you for your time and consideration. I appreciate it.
Hi, everyone. I am Steve Ryman. I'm a member of TJA LLC, the applicant. My address is 9110 Northwest Clay Pit Road in Yamhill. And just wanted to introduce myself, put a name to the application. The other member of the application is Jake Lucy. He's my cousin. We're both Linfield graduates. I got my Linfield shirt on. Yeah, so I just wanted to tell you a little bit about myself. Our family moved here in 2000. We've been here 20 years. We've raised kids here that have went through the Yamhill Carlton School District. Been very involved in the community these past 20 years. I've personally been a coach in the youth program for sports in Carlton and Yamhill for the past 10 years. You know, we've been very supportive of certain programs, Carlton Walk in the Park, Carlton Fun Days. We've contributed to the Yamhill Carlton School District and the Rotary Club and other organizations. Just been very proud to be a member of the community. You know, we're excited tonight because I think we have a good plan here. We worked really hard with the city staff to address some of the concerns from the citizens. We're not going to please everybody. We understand that, but we do feel like we have a really good plan. We've created a lot of open space. We're saving a good amount of trees. We have parkland. We have a walkway that goes through our whole subdivision that connects to the school. We're also creating a variety of type of housing, which I think the city needs. What we're hearing from residents that come into Carlton. You know, I feel like we worked really hard with the city staff. They've worked with us very well and tried to come up with a plan that we feel is good for the city and the community. And, you know, I'm just I think with the times we're going in right now with the COVID thing and stuff, I think it's important that, you know, that we continue to grow, and this particular project will raise a lot of money for, you know, taxes, property taxes, and SDC fees for the city as well as the school district, and help downtown business owners too. And so we're very excited with the plan we have, and I think that Chris here will go into further detail, but we believe that we meet the criteria for this zone change to be approved tonight. And I'll let Chris kind of go through a little bit more detail of our plan here and how we meet the criteria. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rake and members of the City Council. My name is Chris Goodell. I'm with AKS. Our address is 12965 Southwest Herman Road, Carlton, Oregon 97062. We prepared the application that's here before you tonight and working for the property owner and applicant. This slide here, I guess real quick, I have a brief presentation. It includes a little bit of information about the property itself, the site, includes some highlights of the application. It talks about the approval criteria for the zone change. It describes some additional benefits that the application provides. Run through that with you here. So this shows the location of the property. It's on the eastern edge of the city. It's adjacent to a recently approved subdivision called JR Meadows to the north. The property is around 14 acres in size. As Mark mentioned, it's currently designated agricultural holding, and it's been inside the city's UGB since 1981 when the UGB was established. So it's been in the city for a long, long time. This here shows our basically where the property is and the zoning map for the city. And I guess we want to talk a little bit about the comprehensive plan, and my slide that covered things. Read off my notes. So this application concerns housing, and the city's most recent housing needs analysis showed that a significant number of new dwelling units were needed, and it showed that the city's need was for a 75% single-family residential development type, and then 25% multifamily. Currently, the city's housing mix is something more like 97% single family to 3% multifamily. So that kind of tells you where the city is today. The application that we have here, as Mark mentioned, involves rezoning the site from agricultural holding from AH to R2 and R3. And in these acreages here that are shown before you, so roughly 12 acres of R2 and 2 acres of R3. This would encourage 55 lots for single-family detached homes and 22 future multifamily dwelling units. So this is about a 71% to 29% mix, which is pretty darn close to what the city has identified. Comprehensive plan is desired for the city. So this application mirrors the city's desires. A little bit about the zone change review criteria. So these are the criteria that are listed, and I have a few slides that go into a little bit more detail of each one, but these are the 5 questions here really that Mark spoke to. So the first criteria is whether or not the proposed zone is appropriate for the comprehensive plan land use designation on the property and is consistent with the description and policies for the applicable comprehensive plan land use classification. So as we mentioned, it's currently it's AH, agricultural, and the city established this zone basically to be a holding zone until it was needed for urban use. At this point, what we're showing is that it's needed for urban use. It's needed for multifamily housing and it's needed for single family housing. So this is the next approval criteria, which says the uses permitted in the proposed zone can be accommodated on the proposed site without exceeding its physical capacity. So what we have shown here is, as Mark mentioned, is a conceptual plan. This is what Steve would like to do with the property. It shows, a residential subdivision with the things that would be included there, which, streets, utilities, sidewalks, open spaces and trails, and open space improvements. So this shows that the uses of the R2 and R3 zone can be met on the site. So this criteria is met. The next criteria is, it says that the allowed uses in the proposed zone can be established in compliance with the development requirements of this title. So the R2 and R3 residential zones, this plan shows how that would be implemented. It shows lot sizes that are between 6,000 and 7,450 square feet roughly, and the minimum lot size is 6,000 square feet. It shows that the site is available for 22 future multifamily dwellings, which the permitted density in the R3 district is between 8 and 32 units per acre. So it shows that this criteria is met. Now this criteria here is probably what you've heard the most of from the community. So we wanted to dial it back to what we first heard when we met with city staff, and then the comments that have been provided by city staff and others in terms of capacity for these services. So the criteria is adequate public facilities, services, and transportation networks are in place or are planned to be provided concurrently with the development of the property. So these are the items here listed. We have water, sanitary sewer, streets and transportation, and we listed schools as well. And so we included some quotes that have been provided by the city engineer with respect to water. The city engineer found that there is sufficient water distribution system infrastructure to serve the proposed zone change. With respect to sanitary sewer, the wastewater facility plan identified upgrades, and the city has added them to the CIP and intends to improve the treatment plan in the near future. With the improvements, there will be sufficient capacity in the transportation and in the treatment system. So, and then with respect to streets and transportation, traffic analysis was prepared by professional traffic engineer Lancaster Mobley, and found that the streets that were analyzed, the intersections that were looked at, this is what the city engineer said, that the streets at 7th Street at East Main and East Pine Street and Polk Street will be impacted, but the level of service is considered acceptable with no improvements to the intersections. With respect to schools, we reached out to the school superintendent of the Yamhill Carlton School District, and this is what he had to say. He said, the Yamhill Carlton School District does have the capacity to serve and support the number of students that would likely be projected in the development described. So these criteria are met based on the expert testimony that's in the record. The next criteria for a zone change says, for residential zone changes, the criteria listed in the purpose statement for the proposed zone shall be met. We have the purpose statement listed here. It says the purpose statement for the R2 zone, the residential medium density district is to provide for single family and duplex housing at an average density of 10 units per acre or less. The R2 district is consistent with the residential medium density comprehensive plan designation. So with respect to density requirements, minimum lot size, dimensional standards, we have a plan here that shows that all those can be met, and they won't be met here tonight. They're not going to be demonstrated tonight. But there is a future process that demonstrates that. The city has a separate process that would occur after this, which is for a subdivision. And that's when all the details for this would be described. But clearly, the layout that you see before you shows that the intent and purpose of the R2 zone can be met. This slide here is very similar. It's the same criteria, but applies, we're talking about the R3 portion of the property, which is shown there. It's kind of highlighted with the rest of the project faded back. So again, this shows where suitable site for multifamily housing, we can meet density requirements, dimensional standards, and there's a separate process there for site design review that the city would review the application for these improvements. We also show a variety of open space improvements in this area too. I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. So with respect to circulation and transportation systems, this is a snip of the city's transportation system plan functional classification map that shows the property in the area and the different streets. All those streets in yellow and orange, the majority of them have not been built. They do not exist, but are planned. That's what the city has done, as they adopted this, and this is their plan. This is the street network that the city has envisioned for this area. This is what our plan looks like with those same streets. So we have a collector street, which is 7th Street, Wilson Street, which is also a collector street. The yellow streets there are local streets. And then we have what's shown as a pedestrian path system in pink. So if you compare the city's TSP to what we have shown, they're virtually identical. So we have a project that is going to carry forth the city's TSP. I have a couple of slides here that don't necessarily relate to the approval criteria for the application here this evening, but they're relevant to the points that many people have raised in letters to you. So we wanted to show that we've thought about these things and we're not ignoring people's comments. We've thought about them and we've considered them. So this is the conceptual site plan, preliminary site plan that we've provided. The application that is intended to be provided in the future would look basically just like this. So we heard we read in the letters that people would like open space, and this site here, the preliminary site plan shows, almost 2 acres of open space being set aside. There was a considerable amount of testimony about trees, and roughly 30% of the trees on the site, based on this site plan, are being retained. I already spoke about the interconnected street system, but you can see here that there's many street stubs provided for circulation in the future. When these additional properties develop, there's going to be a plethora of street connections. This also shows, like I mentioned earlier, a pedestrian system, which is in pink. It may be a little hard to see, but it shows a connection to the school site to the west. And we thought that was important, and we've heard that before from city staff, and so we're including that. That's the plan, is to have that. Again, I think this summarizes a lot of concerns that were heard regarding streets, water, wetlands, floodplain, and schools, and these issues have all been addressed, and we have extra testimony in the record showing that anything that's related to the approval criteria with respect to these has been satisfied. The cities, there was quite a bit in the record about parks and the lack of parks. So what this slide illustrates is it's the city's parks and recreational facilities plan. And we've shown where the existing park sites are. So there's that slide illustrates that, and this slide shows, or actually this is just an update to that slide, shows where the subject site is, and additional land that's being set aside as open space. Existing park facilities and then future. So there's quite a bit of open space in this area. As Mark alluded to, there's quite a bit of input from development actions, home building, that goes on and isn't really necessarily noticed, but it makes fundamental impacts to communities in terms of monies paid. So we have a few slides that speak to this. Mark spoke to the SDCs, which are system development charges. And this, when homes are built, a certain SDC is paid, and it shows in here per unit. Every one of those is paid upon a future building permit. So each home is around $24,000 goes into the system. So if you combine the JR Meadows project with the second phase, it's roughly $3 million of SDCs that go into improvements to the sewer system, the stormwater system, transportation system, water system, and to the parks. So all those things get funded through these types of development activities. Then on a more basic level, there's connection fees that get paid for water and sewer. And then there's, I don't know if most people know, but there's, when homes are built, there's a construction excise tax that gets paid. And it's based on the dollar per square foot. So based on how big a home is, then this amount of money goes to fund local schools. And then this shows here, based on the number of dwelling units, that's roughly, it's over $200,000 that goes to the school district just as part of this construction excise tax. And then of course there's property taxes that get paid by the individual property owners in the future. And there's also, many people aren't aware, but that school districts get funding based on the number of students they have. So this shows how the school districts get funding and shows the amount of money that goes into the school district from each house. So it's a considerable amount of money. And then again, there's average utility bills and whatnot that also get paid. So development does pay quite a bit of money to the city. And we have a few letters here. There was, I guess, one thing I wanted to point out is, and we highlighted them here in a couple of letters. I'm not going to read them. These are all on the record. But there's a number of folks that do want to testify in support of the application. And I guess I want to confirm that their opportunity to do so is after the staff report gets presented. So Carol's going to speak, and then neighbors that are in favor of the application get to go ahead and say that they're in favor. So I guess a few final things here. We had a hearing back in May with the Planning Commission, your city Planning Commission, and they heard all the testimony, and they weighed the approval criteria that we just talked about, or I just talked about. They heard testimony in favor and against, and they decided that the application in their mind met the approval criteria, and that's why they forwarded a recommendation for approval to you here this evening. And we would appreciate you listening to your Planning Commission and approving the application here tonight. I guess as one final thought, we'd like to answer, I have members of the development team here, and we'd be happy to answer any questions that the City Council might have, any clarifications, any information that I may have not included in the presentation or is unclear in the application materials. And so we'd welcome your questions before you close the hearing and begin your deliberations. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move on to we will provide an opportunity for people to ask questions, so hang around, please. We'll move on to the staff report.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councilors. I am happy that you've heard quite a bit before my staff report, because my 22-page report says quite a bit the same of what you've already heard. So I really want to keep this meeting going and let the citizens comment. And I don't have a whole lot to add, but that being said, I wanted to reiterate the quasi-judicial nature of this request. And citizen involvement indeed is the #1 statewide planning goal. And it comes in a variety of ways, but quasi-judicial is unique in that it has limits to citizen involvement because there is a time frame, and a quasi-judicial decision has to be made in 120 days. And because it's private property, it's considered more, you're acting as a court rather than a wide open community meeting where we get to sit around and talk about property and how the property should best be used. We're past that stage. We're working now under the guidelines of the urban growth boundary that this site is meant to be developed, and it's in a holding zone until the council applies the appropriate city residential, commercial, industrial, public, or other classification. And so our 120 days is ticking, and the applicant has already granted a bit of a waiver, but this is where we are under these circumstances. I'm representing the Planning Commission's decision, which was a majority that recommended approval of their request. And they didn't have as much of the materials as you have tonight, which has really been fine-tuned by quite a bit. And yet at the same time, we are supposed to be at the 30,000 foot level, just talking about a zone change and not all the details of the development yet. But it's important for the citizenry to know what is anticipated for development when the zone change is being requested. And that's why there's been so much detail. The Planning Commission hearing was held on May 18th. Notice was provided to property owners within 100 feet, 20 days before the hearing. And the Planning Commission forwards their recommendation to City Council. The City Council acts on this quasi-judicial action at this public hearing, where all parties may be heard and new evidence may be taken. And that's the procedure for a quasi-judicial decision. We're in a fairly tight format. The agencies that we notified in advance were the LCDC, that's the Land Conservation Development Commission. They always require to be notified before any plans are amended or zones are changed, and they had no comments and no objections. We also notified the Fair Housing Council of Oregon, who's an active kind of watchdog to make sure that cities and counties are doing their job of getting more affordable housing in the state. And they had a positive response to the proposal and the findings that the Planning Commission adopted to make their decision. We notified the Division of State Lands because they don't want the detail yet, but they're being notified that a development proposal on this property does include wetlands and floodplain, and that they indicated they want to make sure that the wetland delineation is provided per their standards at the time a development proposal is submitted. We also provided a letter, conversation and a request from the Yamhill Carlton School District, who replied, a brand new superintendent. They took it to their board, and the board said they just in conclusion, is that they have capacity to meet this new development if it's approved in the next phase. Let's see, anybody else that we sent notice to, but there have been no objections from any agencies, and there will be additional agency involvement in the development stage. The real issue in terms of your decision is that you feel there are adequate findings in the city staff report that address the comprehensive plan compliance and the criterion for a zone change. And there's 14 pages of findings in there that came from the Planning Commission that do support the approval. Basically, because it's in the urban growth boundary and it's been there since 1981, it's kind of amazing it hasn't been developed yet, but we are getting up to the timeline, sort of the end of that time period is 2027, and might be a time to start looking about changes to our urban growth boundary at that point. But we're not that far away from the projected time frame by which we need this housing, considering it was started in 1981. The Planning Commission and City Council do determine the zone when it's in an ag holding, either residential, commercial. I mentioned industrial could be, it's open, but it's clearly suited for R1, R2, R3, or MX, a residential zone, because the city the Planning Commission finds that a residential zone makes a lot of sense based on adjoining land, which is housing, and the elementary school. The market today is dealing with very rapid growth in the state, and the amount of available land in Carlton is limited. And the market indicates there's a need for more housing, and therefore the applicant has gone to find property and continue with the comprehensive plan's intent. Clearly, we need more affordable housing. Everybody knows that. It's not easy to mandate how that happens, but we want to at least try and get to a 25% percentage of multifamily housing, and this will help us do it. And that's what the Fair Housing Council said, is that, they don't expect us, nobody expects us to turn this entire city now into multi-story apartments to meet our goals. It has to fit Carlton's vision. But at least the council felt that the city was moving in the right direction with this proposal. And development is encouraged to utilize vacant lands that will achieve a compact community. The parcel adjoins a planned residential neighborhood. It supports a logical extension of city streets, and the request provides an orderly extension of public services to new residential development within walking distance to the Carlton Elementary School. Now, the natural resources and open space policies, I think the applicant has really come a long way from the Planning Commission's review to address those features. We know that Hahn Creek is recognized as an important drainage and a significant natural resource in the community, suitable for a natural area and open space that's accessible by pedestrians and bicycles. The applicant has set the R3 slightly higher density units next to the open space, which will add, a nice openness to a slightly more dense part of the project for the benefit of the people who live there. And so, the details will come with the wetland delineation, exactly where, and the trees, and the floodplain, which all will come together at a more in-depth review if the council approves the zone change. Planning Commission will consider a subdivision. They are the final decision on a subdivision, and the same kind of quasi-judicial notice procedure will occur then. So we encourage residents to watch for that if it comes. And when. So The Planning Commission found that this change is a supportable decision to provide new neighborhoods with varied housing types in this undeveloped quadrant of the city because it can be serviced with public streets, fire protection, utilities, open space, and trails. The details of how to efficiently and effectively design the development to meet the market demand and provide affordable housing and follow the Planning Commission's criteria and conditions should be based on the thorough site engineering that includes protection of natural features in accordance with the carrying capacity of the land. It is constrained by floodplain, wetlands, drainageways, large trees, and variable topography. And I think you can see seen here tonight, the applicants tried to work around that feature to make it a desirable part of the neighborhood. So, again, the findings are there. If you have any questions about whether they're adequate, those findings are the basis for your decision tonight. And I would like to now have Gordon Monroe, the city engineer, talk about public facilities and just a summary of what we have. Again, this really is the development stage, but it is important to know in advance and to help you with your decision what kinds of utilities will be needed and what is available and is it adequate to with our current systems. So Gordon, you there?
Yes, thank you. Just want to check, make sure that you can hear me clearly. Carol, can you?
Yes.
Okay. So the approval criteria for public facilities is adequate public facilities must be in place or planned to be concurrent with the development. So we took a look at transportation, water, sewer, and storm drainage. So I'll go over each one of those briefly. With regards to transportation, which I call streets here, a traffic study was done by a traffic engineer that concluded that the intersections would still be at a level of service that is acceptable. When the actual development application is done, we will request that study be updated for current conditions. Also note that AASHTO, which is the leading authority on transportation in the country, considers traffic counts of 2,000 or less to be low traffic. And also wanted to note that it just happens that in 2019, so not too long ago, the city did a traffic evaluation on 7th Street north of East Main. And that serves approximately 160 lots total. So relatively the same as JR Meadows plus this new proposed zone change. And the average trips per day was 900. And at a peak hour, that's about one vehicle per half a minute. On average, about one vehicle every minute and a half. And this actual traffic count reflects well with the study that was done by Lancaster. So they pretty well match in their projections. An emergency access is proposed as a secondary access to this site. The site has enough lots that it would need at least 2 accesses, and the proposal and requirement, should a development come in, would be that there be at least 2 access points. And as shown, as the city continues to develop, there will be more connections to the transportation system. With regards to water service, the city's existing distribution system is more than adequate to provide daily demand plus fire flow. This is based on actual fire flow measurements done in the field and hydraulic modeling. The water master plan indicates that there is sufficient water source and treatment to serve a population of about 2,800. Currently, the city's population is 2,270. The city also has projects in place, they're in design, that will help support the system. There is a transmission main that will be constructed probably before the end of next summer. That is estimated to save between 60 and 100,000 gallons of water per day. And there is a reservoir dredging project that will increase the capacity of the raw water reservoir and improve the quality of the raw water. The city also has developed a emergency intertie with McMinnville Water and Light and is in process of developing an agreement. So the city has the capacity, and there are projects that will improve the capacity. There are emergency potentials such as droughts. That is why we have the emergency intertie. With regards to the sanitary sewer system, we have noted that the Han Creek pump station and 2 locations in the collection system require capacity upgrades for any development that might occur. And those improvements are in design right now, and construction again is anticipated to be complete by the end of next summer. The city's wastewater treatment plant, there is a facility plan completed, reviewed by DEQ and accepted by the city, and improvements are now in the CIP. The treatment plant right now, with regards to capacity, meets discharge limits 99% of the time. However, there are improvements that are required, and the city is in process of making those improvements. Stormwater, the site currently does not have a stormwater system on it because it's not developed. So any stormwater system would be required to be designed and constructed by the developer. It will have capacity for what is generated on site and what I call upstream. So any flow that's coming from uphill of the development would have to be accommodated in any storm drain system that would be constructed as part of a future development. I've also noted natural resources. There are wetlands and floodplains within the development area. Those would be evaluated as part of any development. If wetlands are impacted, there's a state permit that would be required. There will be a state permit required for erosion control, and the city has standards for floodplains. So in conclusion, the city's infrastructure is either in place or planned to support this zone change. And that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Gordon. Carol, do we have anything else to add to the staff report?
Not at this time.
Okay. Thank you. Then we will open the public testimony portion of the meeting. We will give you a 3-minute time limit to speak. And we ask if you're, basically, if you're repeating what somebody else has said, if you could just make that quickly so that we're not here extremely late tonight, but we want to hear everybody that has something to say. And we are going to begin with proponents, those who are in support of this zone change. And we'll begin with the principal proponents first. No hands yet?
No hands yet. Oh, Lindsay.
Lindsay?
Hi, everyone. My name is Lindsay Wilson, and I am here to talk on behalf of the Park family, which owns 10215 Northeast Old McMinnville Highway. My dad, who could not be here today, my mom is on the call and will say a few words once I'm done. But I just wanted to let everybody know I did listen to the last meeting, and we are obviously in support of this development, but wanted, or this zone change, I should say, but wanted to let the community of Carlton know that this decision was not taken lightly. My family purchased this property in 1967, and it has been in the family since then. It has been my dad's legacy, and he looked at all different aspects of what to do with this property, talked to the city, talked to all sorts of different people before choosing this particular developer to handle this property, to make it what he felt was best for Carlton. And sadly, he couldn't be here today because he suddenly passed away last year, the day before starting this process with this developer. He was stung by a bee, but that's beside the point. And I wanted the city of Carlton to know that this has been in the process since 1981. This has been years and years and years of talking to different people to find out what the best thing for this piece of property was. And my father, Larry Park, had decided that this was what he thought was best for the community, to leave a legacy for Carlton, because Carlton was his heart. And so we just want you guys to know that we're not going anywhere. We are still going to own some of the property. We're still going to be in the community. Some people had said about wetlands and the creek, something happening to it, and my mom is keeping most of that. So she will still be in the community. She will still be here and an active member in the community. So we just wanted all of Carlton to know, and those here regarding the property and the zone change, to know that this was not taken lightly, and this specific developer, because of his work and how great he does and the quality, is who my dad chose. And we, as you could see by what they did today, this has been a year of prep and looking over everything before coming to the city to ask for this zone change. So we hope that it will be approved tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's my timer, sorry. And I do remember your dad, so it's nice to see you.
Thank you. Yeah, it was very unexpected and very bad timing. My dad literally had a meeting to get this started the day after he passed away. He passed away the day before. So it took us some time to, get our bearings, and then we've been working hard to continue what he started and give his legacy to Carlton like he wanted to do.
Great. Could you go ahead and put your mom on? Did she want to speak?
Yeah, my mom does want to speak. She's on the call. I'm not with her.
Okay.
Is she? I'm sure she can hear.
We just have to unmute her, so.
Okay, so it's Cheryl is gonna be on there.
I see her.
And I can mute myself. She was having a little bit of difficulties with her volume or her speaker.
I believe that Cheryl has been unmuted.
Cheryl, are you there? Cheryl, we have you unmuted. We're not hearing Cheryl, so if maybe we can help her figure out her connection there, we can come back to her.
Okay, I will help her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matthew Park.
Matthew Park?
Good day. My name's Matthew Park. I'm the son of late Larry Park. Grew up on that farm, know every inch of that property, and had a ton of great memories. And am glad to see that, although this is just a zone change, that the proposed plans for the future are to keep a lot of the trees and wetlands. And looking at what is on the plans, it looks like all the floodplains, all the areas that have flooded over the years are not going to be affected. My father had discussed with me over the last 20 years in detail different options and plans, from, you know, crazy ideas like some mini storage and mobile homes and all kinds of different ideas. And he had settled on trying to create something that would be next to the school, allow other families to grow up in the area of Carlton and on that property and make the memories like we had and benefit the community. You know, I don't know what else to say. I don't know what the developers will end up doing. I wish I had a crystal ball. Dad always participated in Carlton Fun Days while he had the trucking company and was capable of doing it. He loved to help out his neighbors. I mean, I don't know how many times we drove the tractor through the middle of town to go over to somebody's house just to help them out do something. So I hope everything turns out for the best in the future. I'm not local anymore, but Carlton's always had a fond spot in my heart and my family's heart. Like I said, the property's been in our family over 50 years, and glad to hear some of the property will be staying within the family. Best of luck to you all, and hopefully you guys approve it and things go the way it should.
Thank you.
Tracy Looney.
Tracy? If you could give us your name and address, please, as well.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, my name's Tracy Looney McGehee. My address is 16105 Southwest Sunrise Lane in McMinnville, Oregon. So as you just heard, I don't currently live in Yamhill or Carlton, but I have history. So I'll give you a little brief history there of me and Carlton. So my great grandma lived in Carlton for most of her life. She passed away at the age of 98. She loved Carlton. I spent a lot of time there. And her house was actually my pit stop when I applied for my teaching job at Yamhill Carlton High School, because it was about 100 degrees and it was an hour drive from Corvallis and I needed to change clothes. So that being said, I've been a teacher and a coach at Yamhill Carlton High School for about 26 years. And I have never applied for another job, and I have never had the desire to. So I guess the reason I'm speaking is because when I started in Yamhill, our school enrollment was over 450, and now we're down to, I don't know what we're going to have the year of COVID here when people come back to school or not, but it's dropped a lot. So when I got my job, I drove from Corvallis, and we tried a couple times very intently to try to find a place in the Yamhill or Carlton area. And at that time, there weren't many homes that were suitable or desirable. Either they were way too expensive that we could afford at the time, or too small, or just needed too much work for what we could do when we were young and just getting started. But I've been in Yamhill, like I said, teaching for 26 years, and basically I come here to sleep, but most of my time I've spent at the high school or at the parks and sports and activities and supporting the Yamhill Carlton community and my school and my students. The opportunity to have new homes or lots to build on or rental properties available, I feel would be really important to bring families to the area who would like to set roots down there. It's an amazing place. I've had 2 kids graduate from YC. They're now at college. As you can see, I'm a duck. They're beavers, but I still love them. But they had an amazing education, and I have a son who is going to be a sophomore at the high school. And I fought McMinnville School District tooth and nail to get my kids every year to get them to be able to stay at YC, because we had to do the inter-district transfer until finally they changed those rules. Yamhill and Carlton is just a great place to raise kids. Our schools and our programs are outstanding and they're innovative. So I guess just knowing that growth is inevitable, I think it's important that we keep in mind that the people and the companies that are involved in this proposed project who have made Carlton and Yamhill their homes, they're raising their families here, they're invested in and they love their community, in my opinion, they would be great stewards in creating a family-friendly subdivision to raise their families and to give them the opportunity to have an amazing small school education and extracurricular programs or co-curricular programs, and just a beautiful area out there to be a part of. So, you know, I think it's a great opportunity for growth, and I know the school can handle it, because when I started at YC, we had a lot more students than we do now, and we've done wonderful improvements to our schools as well. So anyways, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next.
There are currently no raised hands.
Okay, anyone else? Proponents?
Edward DeGraw.
Edward?
DeGraw, I apologize.
Edward DeGraw?
I'm asking to unmute. There we go.
Hello, my name is Ed DeGraw. I live at 9190 Northeast Old McMinnville Highway, Carlton, Oregon, 97111. I actually remember when the Park family bought that property. And I'm currently a biologist. I know that there's a lot of people that are wanting to talk about the Oregon white oaks, and I know the plight of the Oregon white oaks. And part of the reason I am a biologist, excuse me, is because of a lot of the time that I spent playing around in Hahn Creek when I was a kid. I caught a lot of gopher snakes, frogs, all kinds of things like that. And one of the things that I think is really important about this development is its proximity to the school, and that by having some public space, it actually could be something used by the school as an educational feature to help introduce kids to the kind of stuff that I had when I was growing up, because we just don't have that much anymore. And it's one of the big pluses that I've seen in the plan, the way that it's been put forward, is preserving that and making it so that it's accessible to the public. That would mean it would be accessible to the students. The educational value is tremendous. I definitely am from the area. I mean, where the old bank is in Carlton, that's the Pike Winery now, tasting room, that was the bank that my great-grandfather ran. So I am familiar with the area, and we need to control the way that growth is going to happen, and the growth is inevitable. And so getting it so that we can put things in place that are going to help to protect the character of Carlton is really important. And that's something that I see in this plan going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Lindsay again.
Lindsay?
Hi. Okay, so my mom, Cheryl, should be able to unmute now.
Okay. So Cheryl.
Yes, I am unmuted.
Okay, Cheryl, we can hear you.
Thank you. This is Cheryl Park. My address is 10215 Northeast Old McMinnville Highway. I have lived in Carlton for more than 40 years. I went to YC. My husband went to YC. My daughter went to YC. And we've just been a part of this community forever. And we love it dearly. And I'm not going anywhere. And I just hope that everybody's in support of this zone change, because I think it's a really good thing for this community, that Carlton is bound to grow. And like Edward just said, we might as well have some control in how it grows. And that's my thoughts exactly. Thank you so much, you guys.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
Ken Wright Sellers.
Ken Wright Sellers.
Wanted to speak in support of this project. I've known the Ryman family for many, many years. Every project that they have touched with their business and in their time has been a quality project that has improved community. We do need more students in our schools. Our schools have, because of lack of students, we're not getting the funding that comes with them to support those schools, and it would be the looks of this project do seem to lend itself to families. So for those reasons, and I think for many more, I think it's a quality development that does seem to respect the area, and I would hope that the council would vote for this project to go forward.
Thank you, Ken.
You can speak up. What's that? Say something.
Any other proponents?
I see no raised hands at this time.
If there are any other proponents, if you could.
Oh, I guess there's Lawson. Let me unmute.
Okay.
There you go.
Lawson?
Hey, Brian, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hey, this is Mark Gabler. I'm up at Mike Lawson's office. We live at 7575 Hendricks Road, but our shop, and we run our farm out of 9150 Old McMinnville Highway. I've known Steve and Tiffany for many years. Spent many hours sitting next to them watching kids play basketball and soccer and every other thing. And just like Ken said, the projects that they do are quality projects. They're good for the town. I was on I Love Living in Carlton earlier, just looking at some of the comments. People are complaining about the schools and not enough room. So when our son graduated 4 years ago, or 3 years, I think it was 3 years ago, I think there was 90 kids in his graduating class, and this year I believe there was right at 60. So I'm pretty sure the schools have plenty of room, and you know, we passed that bond a few years ago. They're doing some pretty amazing things. But ultimately, at the end of the day, I had the chance, I guess, or me and my wife, we had the chance to buy that property from Larry and Cheryl many years ago, and we chose not to. So my thing would be is Steve and his wife Tiffany, with their business, they chose to buy it. They chose to take a gamble on it. And I guess I would put out there that any of the people that are against it, if they don't want to develop it, they should have got out their checkbook and they should have bought it. It's a pretty simple equation, because they do quality work, and you know, the town needs that. A lot of people complain about the water and stuff like that, but you guys are in the process of doing your deal with Mac Water and Light, and you know, you have a backup plan for when you clean out the reservoir up there, and you have a lot of things that are going to get better over time. So I guess at my point, do I want more traffic on Old Mac Highway? No, but that's just a short-term deal, the way I understand it. And so it looks like a great plan to me, and I say you guys approve it.
Thank you. Any other proponents?
There are no raised hands at this time.
Okay. So we will move on to opponents, folks who are opposed to the development. I'll give you 3 minutes. Please digitally raise your hand. Is there anyone?
There are no raised hands at this time.
Okay.
Oh, just kidding.
Wait, there's one.
Laura.
Laura?
Hello, my name's Laura. I live at 340 East Monroe. And I've listened to everything and I respect the other side. But I remember a time when my girls could go outside and they could play or they could walk. And my youngest daughter, before she was killed, would run all over the place. And I felt comfortable letting her do that. If we continue this growth spurt, eventually we're going to get people in here that don't follow the rules or obey the law. I'm concerned about how we're going to protect those young children who like to run in the dark or at any time of the day just because it's there to do. Is there a plan in place to protect those kids? Because I've already lost one kid. I don't want to see another parent lose another. It's a very simple question. I mean, we've already addressed the water issue, which is insane, and I'm tired of dealing with water rationing. But apparently that will continue. But my biggest concern is the safety of children. You add more houses, you bring more people in, great. But how are you going to protect the kids? Because you know eventually you're going to get a bad apple. It's a simple question. It's not one that's been addressed. What are you going to do to keep people safe? Because there is crime. We have practically none. And that's why people from big cities want to move out here. But when is enough enough? Because the whole point is a small town.
Thank you.
iPad 22 has his hand raised.
So whoever's on iPad 22.
I'm asking to unmute.
I will also mention at this point that we've had numerous letters, and all of those letters that have come in have been submitted to council members, so everybody's had the opportunity to read those letters as well, both for and against the zone change.
May I speak?
Go ahead.
My name's Tim Thurman. I live at 1001 East Main Street. I've lived here for over 40 years with my wife, raised our kids here, gone through the school system and everything. I love this town. And I don't believe in the inevitability of us having to grow like you suggest. I'm here because I like this town and its rural flavor. I have frontage on Hun Creek. I've seen new neighbors denude the property right down to the creek's edge. Talked to the city about it. Nobody seemed to be able to do anything. And we're supposed to accept you at your word that this new development is going to do the right thing. Well, you had the opportunity to earlier and didn't. I invite anybody to drive into town, look at my property on the east side of Han Creek, and look at the property on the west side of Han Creek and make up your own mind. As far as the traffic is concerned, my wife and I walk daily, and it is downright scary. We walk down the highway and we walk down the old McMinnville Highway, and we really can't support all these new houses. I mean, we have small children that live next door, and I worry about them. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
All right, Susie Terrell.
Susan Terrell.
Hello.
Hi, Susan.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
So I have some concerns with the agricultural change from agricultural holding to R2. I was so heartened to hear so much consensus around preservation of wetland and preservation of mature timber. And I've very much appreciated Lindsay's input on how much she cared about that property. I think that's fundamentally where we as a city need to come from. But regardless of all of that, we do have an applicant who is associated with this zone change. This applicant has a record of behavior in phase one. We've seen it happen. Despite they have done perhaps their Department of State land notification for this phase two. In phase one, they did not do that. And I have email record and phone call record to support that claim. So neither the city nor the developer did the proper notification in phase one. That investigation is still ongoing. That's awaiting the more information from the consultant who is meant to be submitting information to Mike de Blasi at Department of State Lands, and that has not come in yet. So we don't know what the situation is there. DEQ is currently in the evaluation process of the project. The 401 program is evaluating it, as well as the Corps of Engineers. So I'm going to say that despite our assurances that nothing will happen, we need only look at the wetland on the south end that was completely eliminated after the city had given assurances that they would oversee this zone change and make sure that it went ahead with environmental concerns in mind. That was fundamentally very disappointing, and it continues to concern me. We hear that there's going to be oversight, just do the zone change, and then there'll be all this oversight. Well, you know, on our phone call to Mike de Blasi today, he mentioned that the city wasn't taking care of the Han Creek Park property well. He mentioned that he had already called the city and said, you can't drive your heavy equipment on the wet spots there, and you continue to do it. And he asked me would I mention that to the city at the time. So all these promises of oversight from the city, Carol tells us, oh, don't worry, the city will take care of this when it's done. I just see fundamental misrepresentation. The housing analysis was the purpose of the letter from Fair Housing Council. And that is per a phone call with Louise Dix and Jean Dahlquist. So we have driven the conversation towards assuring some affordable housing in there, but we haven't seen any proof of it. The same developer did the development for the 6 houses at the top of East Harrison. Those houses were meant to be 2 duplexes and 3 single-family homes. They are 6 single-family homes. And in fact, the most recent one is 500.
I just want to remind you, your 3 minutes are up now. So
okay.
If you can close your statements, please.
Yes, so I fundamentally think that this could go forward if the traffic analysis that Dan Fricke would have recommended, had he been asked for input, that would have given additional information to your transportation analysis. There are fundamental misrepresentations that are not being over. There's not.
Okay, your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Felix Madrid.
Felix, right there. Felix?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can't hear you.
Can you or can you not?
I can, yes.
You can. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, council members. My name is Felix Madrid. I live at 1000 East Main Street. I've been here in October 23rd. It'll be 29 years. My 2 daughters were both born in my house. And in fact, they're with me tonight. I am also a business owner. I work a small vineyard on the property, and I have a small winery as well. I'd like, though, to speak about substantive issues, the ones that we're dealing with tonight. I'd like to speak about semantics and philosophy within the context of the applicant's quest for City Council approval of the zoning change and development JR Meadows 2. To do so, I'd like to revisit the application for JR Meadows 1, which also involved a zoning change and which was passed by the Carlton City Council on December 3rd, 2019. The staff report from the Planning Commission for this zone change was reviewed on that day. I'd like to look at some comments contained within. Dennis Durham, former city manager for Carlton, added to the staff report on October 16th, 2019, comments regarding Carlton's community water system. I paraphrase, and please note his use of the word work. Quote, in 2018, the city initiated work on new water projects focused on building water storage capacity. Work is currently underway to replace 7 miles of water transmission main line. The city is also beginning work to dredge the city's reservoir. When both projects are completed over the next 12 to 24 months, water availability will be significantly improved, end quote. When city manager uses the word work, he clearly does not mean backhoe work, digging trenches, laying pipelines, or dredging Carlton's reservoir, because none of this work was being done at the time of his statements to council. In fact, at this time, there is still no work being done. No backhoe work, no pipe laying work, no dredging work. Perhaps he means planning for this work. In that case, it's possible that this is being done. In any case, according to his timeline, the projects he mentioned will be completed in the time frame October 2020 to October 2021. Carlton Comprehensive Plan requires that water be available prior to zone change approval and development, not in an engineering report, not in a planning stage, but actual water flowing in pipes to the community. Perhaps it's the case that the Carlton City Council was misled as to the nature of the water work that was being done at the time that J.R. Meadows 1 was approved.
Your time is up. So if you want to—
My 3 minutes are up?
They are. And then some. So if you'd like to make a closing statement.
I want to say that I'm very sorry that you're not giving adequate time for representation of the opposing views.
Well, we actually all have the letters you've sent us, and we've all had those to review. Actually, your letter.
Mr. Mayor, there is material that I'm presenting tonight that is not contained in those letters that you have.
Well, I'm sorry, the rule is 3 minutes, so.
I petition the mayor and the council for additional time to finish my small and short presentation.
How much more time do you need, Felix?
I haven't timed myself, but I'm thinking it'll probably be another 3 minutes.
Okay, once we get through everyone else, we will reconsider where we're at for time and give you the other 3.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thanks, Felix.
G. Frugia.
G. Frugia.
Hello?
We're just going by the name on the screen, so.
I know. That's my husband, Guy Frugier. I'm Chris Marie Frugier, 310 West Lincoln, Carlton. Real short and sweet. I'd kind of like an answer to the percentage of emails and letters you got. The council read. I know you're not going to read them all, but can we have a percentage of what you received, just ballpark right now on the Zoom?
A percentage as to what?
For and against this rezone.
I have no clue.
Oh, come on. Come on. Somebody on that council knows.
Do you have anything else that you'd like to say?
Yeah, I'd like to know the percentage of pro and con on the rezoning, approximately, of all the letters and emails you received.
I can't go through and figure that out right now.
Well, maybe by the end of the meeting, I'd appreciate that. Morgan must know.
Is there anything else you'd like to say, Marie?
Well, I'd like an answer, but that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
There are no other hands raised at this time besides Felix Madrid.
Are there any other hands? Just Felix? Okay, Felix, we'll go ahead and give you another 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me, Mr. Mayor?
Yes. I can hear you, Felix.
All righty, thank you. Also in the staff report for JR Meadows 1 is a memo from city engineer dated August 21st, 2019. He's provided the following comments. There is a natural drainage that discharges to Hahn Creek near East Main Street. A portion of the area will be able to utilize this drainage. The rest of the land drains overland to Hahn Creek. As the current site engineering for JR Meadows 1 routes all storm drainage to this natural drainage spoken of by city engineer in the staff report considered by city council, prior to approval of JR Meadows 1, drainage considered as being able to handle a portion of this area's drainage, it's no wonder that this development is presently being investigated by DEQ for stormwater discharge. It's also likely that JR Meadows 1 is in violation of Oregon drainage law. Facts and speculation. Let's look at past performance to evaluate the developer's claim that 30% of the trees will be retained in JR Meadows 2. City Planner Carol Connell, in her staff report presented to City Council, recommended approval of the proposed 38-lot JR Meadows 1 subdivision, subject to certain conditions of approval. Among others, City Planner spoke about the mature trees on various areas on the perimeter of the site. Carol Connell, in her staff report, said, the existing trees identified on sheet P2 and P3 that are on the perimeter of the site shall be retained wherever possible. Unfortunately, there's not a tree left standing in these areas. Why is this so? Essentially because the city, in granting an R2 or R3 zone designation, forfeits its ability to mandate this requirement from the developer. And as it is not in the interest of the developer to save these trees, they've all been cut. The same would happen with JR Meadows 2. Don't believe the developer's claim that 30% of the trees in the site will be retained. The site clearing of JR Meadows 1 makes abundantly clear what the priorities are for the developer. Maximum profit. The trees, even 100-year-old ones, will be removed. I'd like to speak to Mark Hoyt's assertion that we should focus very narrowly on the zoning change petitioned for in the application and disregard the details at the moment. Unfortunately, the zoning change petitioned for here is a Trojan horse. Once approved, this zone change will lock in a certain type of development. Let's look more closely at this. As Carol Connell said in her
at the end of your second
earlier this evening, this lot within the UGB of Carlton is suited for residential zones R1, R2, R3, and MX. The question we should be asking here is whether the R2, R3 zoning change sought by the developer is the best for this lot.
So Felix, your time is up.
The council values park and open space, truly affordable housing.
I'm sorry, Felix, we went over your time again. So.
Katrina Burnett.
Katrina?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
I just wanted to say, so I'm not super like for it or against it. I totally understand that there's needs to be more housing and growth. I just want to mention, I know that a lot of other people may have mentioned about the schooling. And, you know, with all due respect, sure, maybe the high school attendance may be down, but I know that they just moved the fourth graders to the middle school because of the amount of students and class size in the elementary school. So that's a big concern that I have. I feel like class size is already stretched. I work in the school system, so I know that the preschool and the elementary school kids are have a large class size already, and the fact that they're moving fourth graders over to the middle school is a little bit concerning. besides the water and other things. I mean, there's a lot of things, but I understand that that the zone change does make sense, I would say, for that area. I just hope that going forward we can be a little bit conscientious, especially of the concerns of the citizens about issues with that development. That's all.
Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else have a hand up?
No.
Okay. We're going to move on to any neutral or undecided comments. Anyone else?
It looks like there are no hands raised at this time.
Okay. So now we will move to the principal proponent rebuttal. So we'll start with AKS.
Mark.
Right there on the screen, Chris.
There we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, Mark Hoyt is going to have, he has a few things he wanted to say in closing, and listening to the testimony that we heard here, I don't believe we have anything to add. The materials that are in the record currently stand on their own. So thank you.
Thank you. Mark Hoyt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just quickly want to bring us back to where we started, and that was with Mr. Gowell, the city attorney's admonition that this is a quasi-judicial proceeding in which narrow issues are being defined or decided regarding a singular property and singular approval criteria. I think that AKS did a very nice job in laying out the individual criteria applicable to each of the standards that must be met. The proposed zones are appropriate for the ag holding comprehensive plan designation. The allowed uses in the R2 and R3 proposed zones can be accommodated on the site. You've seen that in the site plan. The allowed uses can be established in conformance with development standards. You've seen that in the proposed site plan, which again is tentative, but likely what you will see come in upon approval. Adequate public facilities are available to the site. You have testimony directly from your staff that that is the case. And the criteria and the purpose statements of the zone are met. And in each case, the R2 and the R3 zone proposal meet those criteria. So there are legitimate issues here to be addressed. There are legitimate concerns of which we understand people in the community are very passionate. None of those are before the council tonight. Those things can and will be addressed. We don't agree with a lot of the assertions made about some of the contentions. There's a lot of reference to things that may or may not happen. Those things are not part of what's before you today. We can deal with those things when it's time. We do want to make clear that we do not agree with those positions. We believe that the developer has done appropriate work and handled things beautifully in phase one, but that will be information that we will deal with at a future time. So with that, we would answer any final questions the council has, but we would ask that we look at this from the perspective of what is being asked today, which is to take land that is designated and required under Oregon law to be developed and change that from a holding zone to an appropriate designation zone going forward. And we believe that the housing information that's been submitted to the city, the growth of the city, the need for housing for the city, the very reason that the people are so passionate about this city that others want to come live here, that those zones will provide those opportunities for those citizens to come and enjoy the benefits of Carlton that those who are there and feel so passionately about the community are already enjoying.
Thank you. We are going to go to the city engineer, Gordon Monroe, has some comments.
Sure. I wanted to respond to Felix's question about the water improvements and what work means. Essentially, those comments are directed to the project as a whole. Significant amount of design has been done on the transmission main. Essentially, it's 98% designed. We're waiting on a single easement, and that project will be bid out. And as noted earlier, we are assuming it will be constructed by the end of next summer. The dredging project, it is the same issue, a lot of design, but also permitting is being done at this time. We have done significant outreach with Weyerhaeuser to use their property to place the dredge material, and that's all going through permitting right now. The intent time frame is that that project will also occur next summer. So those projects are in process. So the word work is referring to the entire project, not just the actual construction.
Everything? Okay. Carol, do you have anything to add? Carol, are you muted?
Now I am.
There you are.
Here we are. I have a, and I don't know if it's exact, but a pretty good count on the number of letters for and against. Do you want to know that?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay. So there, the letters against were from Susan Terrell, Felix Madrid, Maxine Ruff, and Jennifer Allenson. That's 4. And the letters in support were from Mike and Carrie Lawson and Tim Corrigan. That's 2, in addition to what you've heard tonight. Okay. I might have missed somebody, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there were a lot of letters that just went out to individual counselors. Folks didn't ask to add them into the record, so I don't know.
Okay, well, that's all I've seen.
Okay. So we will, public agency letters, comments, or written testimony submitted is all in the packet, correct? So we will close public testimony portion of the hearing and read the legal announcement. ORS section 197.763 paragraph 6A states that upon request, the commission must either grant a continuance for no less than 7 days or hold the record open for no less than 7 days. Am I reading the right one? To permit any applicant an opportunity to provide additional testimony, argument, or evidence. If no continuance has been requested and no request made to hold the record open, the public hearing is closed and the record is closed. Are there any requests for continuances? Okay, then we will close the public hearing and we will move into final comments from staff and recommendation. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So deliberation of council.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I had a question for either of the city engineers. I saw a reference to an emergency access point coming off of Old McMinnville Highway. Is that just for emergencies, or is that going to be a point of egress in this development as far as relating to transportation needs being adequate for this property?
Carol, would you like to answer that?
The answer is it's emergency access, likely with bollards or some other key method to open in the event of an emergency.
Council?
Yeah. Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead.
May I?
Yes, please.
Oh, okay. I think we were talking over each other again. So what you're saying, Carol, is that at least initially, the only access is going to be 7th Street?
Yes.
Okay, they were talking about doing the westbound Cleveland, but
I'm
that's...
sorry, there is one correction there. Phase 1 will connect to Washington Street. And so that Washington Street, you know, anybody in phase 1 or phase 2 will use either Washington Street or Main Street until Cleveland and Wilson are connected in the vacant parcel between this and town.
Okay. When the city council approved the zoning change for phase 1, how far did that zoning change extend? Has phase 1 had their site design review yet?
Yes, they had a preliminary subdivision plan hearing with the Planning Commission. And the Planning Commission had a long list of conditions that always come with the details like you've been hearing tonight. And the applicant has since submitted the final plat, which is what will be recorded. And it's close to being recorded.
Was that before or, excuse me, was that before or after the house was burned down?
The approval?
The Planning Commission.
I don't know when the day the house was burned down, but
It was before.
Before.
Okay.
Council, any other questions, comments?
Yeah, I do. This Shirley, I do.
Go ahead, Shirley.
So I have some issues with Mr. Hoyt's comments tonight that as council, that we just need to take a very narrow view, the 30,000-foot view of this project. Now, I have to say initially that I have no opposition to development. I have no opposition to some development in that area, but I have some issues with respect to the way this development is looking so far. One of which has to do with the environmental sensitivity of that parcel. It's probably, if not one of the most environmentally sensitive, it might be the most environmentally sensitive parcel in the entire, within our entire urban growth boundary that's available for building. And I'm very concerned about the wetlands issue and the floodplain. And by the way, the FEMA firm map is 5 years out of date. So we're dealing with information that's not updated. I have a letter here that I'm going to read a part of it from the Yen Hills Soil and Water Conservation District. It was sent in by Barbara Boyer, who's the board chair. I won't read the entire thing, but the salient elements to it. She said, I have toured the property with neighboring landowners and looked at maps with our staff habitat conservationist, Amy Luke Friesen. And it seems like at least part of it is wetland. There could be more than what is mapped on the National Wetlands Inventory site, as this site usually depicts what can be seen on aerial photography and doesn't get down to an, quote, on the ground scale. We think the applicant should submit a wetlands determination from a third-party consultant, which can show not only what has hydric soils and associated wetland plant species, but will also list impacts from the planned development, alterations in flow, groundwater effects, etc. This would be more comprehensive than just FEMA. If the applicant is not able to avoid impacts, then mitigation should be required to some degree. We feel the data from the consultant's wetland report should help the an educated decision. And that's my dilemma right now, because I don't know, what we're dealing with on that parcel of land. How is it that I make an educated decision about going forward with a zone change? Okay, and so that's number one. Number two is,
I'm sorry, Shirley, could we just answer the first one first and then we'll come back to number 2?
Go ahead.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, Gordon, city engineer, if you could talk a little bit about the wetlands point that Shirley's made.
Sure. So as part of any development, they will be required to do a site-specific wetland delineation. So that's required for any development. They don't rely simply on the national inventory.
And then the first point I think that Shirley was making about Mr. Hoyt's comments tonight. I wonder, Walt, if you're on the call yet, do you have any comments with reference to what Mr. Hoyt has talked about this evening?
Well, I think that I believe that Mr. Hoyt's comments go to the issue of the fact that the criteria for a zone change are different than the criteria for a subdivision, where a number of these very sensitive issues have to be explored. Consultants' reports are undertaken, designs are submitted, health department and DEQ applications and division of state land applications are made. Those are processes that typically occur at the design and subdivision phase, not at the zone change phase. And that I believe that Mr. Hoyt's point is that the council's obligation is to focus on the criteria that are for a zone change, not the criteria that are for a subdivision. So I think that's
Well, part of my problem with this is I look at JR Meadows 1, and as soon as they got the zone changed, nearly a week later, the property was clear cut, so, so I have great concerns about that. And the other part, so the second part of what I want to bring up is the zone change from R2 and R3 does not require, in other words, on either of those zones, single family dwellings can be built. It does not condition multifamily. So even though the developer can say they're going to put multifamily in, it certainly doesn't mean that they are. And we've seen evidence of that elsewhere here in Carlton. Number 2, it doesn't require them to have adequate green space. And what I see on the plan so far is that they're allowing or expecting 1.93 acres left for open space, which is an acre less than what Mr. Ryman allowed for Carlton Crest. That is not much of a park over there, and that's an acre more than what is anticipated for this subdivision. So those are some concerns that I have.
Thank you, Shirley. Anyone else?
Yeah, maybe as a good follow-up to what Shirley's comments were, could someone educate me further about the use of the MX zone and how whether that would address some of the issues that we're hearing in terms of park use? I did a quick comparison and found that the lot sizes are more or less comparable in terms of the requirements for density and housing per acre, but I'm guessing there must be some reason that there's a separate designation for MX that that I'm not understanding, and whether that would help enforce some of the things that the community is looking for.
Sure. Carol, would you like to answer that question?
Yes, and since we have never seen an MX development proposal, that's a good question. And when I looked at it, I came to a similar conclusion in that the applicant could still do single family in the MX, and you don't have a big difference there. One of the differences is you could put in a convenience commercial use, which may or may not be suitable here. And Really, there wasn't, I found it could almost be less density in the end because it's only 9 dwelling units per acre, whereas the R3 gives you quite a bit more than that. So it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. There are 2 sites currently zoned MX. One is south of this site, down towards the edge of the urban growth boundary. I don't have it right in front of me, but, and then another one's up on 4th, and it's an irregular piece that is not very big. And we spent, I think about 3 years ago, talked to somebody about that one to the south, and they never came back. So maybe it was 4 years ago. So I didn't see a big advantage and less density, a chance for less density.
And if I understand correctly, Carol, MX also allows for like manufactured home parks?
True. Yeah. Who said that?
Brian, Mayor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, good point. As a conditional use.
Carol, this is Shirley, but it's my understanding with MX that it is required that a certain amount of multifamily housing, and that's not the case with R2 or R3.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. That was the one thing I missed. It does say 25% of whatever they build must be either multifamily or attached single family, like a duplex.
Right.
So.
And the other thing is that there's a certain percentage of open space that has to be allowed for parks, et cetera. You know, it just.
Where did you see that?
Open space. Well, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it's in that MX designation.
I'll look, but I'll be back in a minute. Didn't see that.
The way I read it is that open space is permitted for MX, but not.
I don't think it's required. Oh yeah, open space uses are allowed, which is kind of vague.
Yeah, my next question then would be how open space would differ from public park and recreation area, which is the wording that's permitted for R2. Is there a legal difference?
No, I think it's a matter of options. The developer could arrange for a homeowners association that, depending on how the cities, I don't think the park plan has a designated site there. I know it talks about it being a future area that's needed for a park. Right now, the parks plan just has the school as somewhat of a park facility. So the developer could either make it a private open space and have it maintained by the homeowners association, or as a public space if the city wanted to accept it and pay for it and pay for the maintenance of it would be the other option. So that's just too much detail at this point for us to know.
I guess the one thing with referring to the school as a park is it's not feasible. The school is closed to the public, basically. This is not a park, and this is never going to be a public park, at least as long as it's a school. So I wouldn't count that as part of a park system or open space.
I don't disagree with you. It's just there with the recreation equipment is close, but I understand that. The parks plan, until you finish your new one, doesn't really say anything about that area being serviced for a park, except that there's a need.
Yeah.
So does the city have it and it's going to put it in the CIP as something they want to buy or what? We haven't gotten that far. So well, I guess we're alternative, not an alternative, but yeah. It's possible the Han Creek area in that region where there will be other future development on the edge of the urban growth boundary could all be linked into one, which is what should happen on the edge of the floodplain.
Mm-hmm.
if we knew exactly where the floodplain was.
Oh, we know pretty well. 5 years is not that long for a, not that old for a floodplain map.
The one thing that I've not heard in all of this conversation that concerns me, and I just don't even know what to think about this, is that we're talking about putting some pretty major subdivisions in the middle, basically sandwiching them between two active wine growing facilities that use air cannons both in the during harvest season and during ripening. We already in Carlton have to listen, not have to listen, but we hear the air cannons anyway, and certainly the people that live near them have a lot of problems and a lot of issues with that. I'm really concerned about what's going to happen to those two wine growers when whatever goes in there, because they're going to be dealing with a lot of really unhappy neighbors. The other concern is that you've got a dairy about a mile down the road, and I think everybody in Carlton knows when the wind is blowing just right, we're smelling that dairy, and that dairy is going to be coming right blowing in where those guys are, where these new houses are going in. I don't know how that affects anything, except I just would like to point that out and have us keep that in mind as we're looking at this. It's a very uncomfortable situation, I would find.
The
Just
interface
something
of
I
urban,
wanted to remind the developers of.
the interface of urban and non-urban land anywhere has the same conflicts and need to be resolved at the time when they come up. So,
Any other counselors, comments, questions?
Carol, what would be involved, excuse me, what would be involved in terms of changing or amending an application to change the zoning?
Of this application? I think Walt can answer that, but we discussed it and you could change it by your motion tonight.
Let me comment on that. I think that, quite frankly, the discussion with regard to the MX zone is really shown that really it is a lower density zone, but it does have a 25% requirement for multiple family. And if the council wants to hold the developer to that 25% standard that's in the MX zone, you could approve the R3 zone amendment subject to the condition of approval that it would carry with it a 25% multiple family requirement. Do you believe that that would be possible, Carol?
If you say it is, and the AKS attorney says it is, but the other thing is, I think their plan is 25%, as AKS has shown it. But to hold them to it in case they change their mind.
Right, that may be a condition of approval that they would not object to. Obviously, we can't take testimony on that now, but it wouldn't strike me as an unreasonable condition of approval that the council could undertake to ensure that the representations made about multiple family development in the R3 portion of the property are carried through on.
No, I agree. It's not great to condition zone changes, Walt, as you know, with anything too specific, but that is a broad statement that is reasonable, that would carry with the land if anything changed on this one, and it would still make sense. So if owners changed.
I have another question, Walt, and that is, can we place a stipulation that until the wetlands determination is done by a third-party consultant, and we have all of that cleared, that not 1 ounce of land is turned on that parcel?
Well, that requirement goes with the requirement for getting approval of a subdivision. That has to be done before a preliminary plat can be approved. And development can't take place until a preliminary plat is approved by the planning commission. So that 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 review, that requirement that you're talking about is part, as your city engineer indicated earlier, is part of the subdivision process and is going to be required given the location of that property next to Pond Creek.
So what happened at JR Meadows 1? I mean, you know, there was no site plan and all kinds of things. I mean, the trees were taken out and everything was level.
Trees, Carlton has no requirement for maintaining trees, so.
Yeah, it was encouraged and we tried, and the narrowness of the lot, especially as you got close to 7th Street, made it difficult to save all the trees. And that's why it said, we encourage you to save the trees on the border of the property. And I think as far as the wetland was concerned, there was notification to DSL. Gordon, fill in here, please. And it was determined not to be.
What was determined not to be? I'm sorry.
So let me follow up on that. There was a wetland delineation that was done for JR Meadows, and the development did not impact that wetland.
Yeah, they stayed out of it.
They stayed out of it, and it's still there.
Well, I mean, I've walked that property over there. I wouldn't like to see any of those trees removed that is in there in the wetland until we've, you know, have this final report done.
And as you're aware, if there's any removal, it does have to be mitigated. So remember, we're trying to get density in housing, and sometimes an edge of a road, you can't determine at this point exactly how that's going to turn out. If you're going to mandate density, we need the fine-grained detail to figure out how we might mitigate any changes to the natural state of the property. And you can't expect anybody to go into that detail until they have a zone change.
Listening to everything here, I guess my preference would be to go with the MX. I don't know that we need the density so much as we need accessibility to lower income housing, which is still not something with duplexes and single family that you're going to get. And it's one of the problems that we have in this community is that there are no rentals, there is no housing available for working families that are just regular working families. I'm just not comfortable with encouraging more density in this town right now.
Walt, could you answer this question? Can the city council impose a zoning designation without the property owner's consent or participation?
Well, the property owner can withdraw the application. I believe that it's questionable whether that can be done. I can't tell the council, give an opinion that would be sustained by LUBA. What I would suggest in lieu of that, because the two zones R3 and MX are so similar, that I think you would stand a much better chance simply lifting the condition from the MX zone and plopping it down onto your approval for the R3 zone here. Because that is really the only substantive difference between the two, other than MX has a lower density and therefore is less likely to result in multiple family. But if you want less multiple family, you wouldn't take that. You wouldn't want that 25% condition, which is not present in the R3 zone.
Now, also, may I add that the 25% in the MX must be in multifamily or detached single family, like a duplex. So
that's correct, or townhouses.
Yeah, or townhouses, and so that you're not gaining anything.
Well, yeah, you are.
if you say you want 25% in this, as the zoning is proposed as a condition, which Walt said would be acceptable, And you're going to get the 25%, and you also have the opportunity for higher density, which you don't have in the MX.
You also have opportunity for smaller businesses to come in there to make it more of a community itself instead of a housing development. You would have the opportunity for some of the businesses in Carlton to put a satellite office out there or a satellite shop. You would be able to do maybe a little bit more with your green spaces.
Council, any other comments? Is there a motion?
I move that we approve this zone change with the contingency as described by Walt. I would need more specific.
I would relate to a 25% multiple family requirement as set forth in the MX zone for the R3 portion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
No, we have to do a roll call.
Is this a roll call? Okay, we'll do a roll call vote. Sorry.
Councilor Rhodes.
Aye.
Councilor Wilder.
Aye.
Councilor Mayer.
We didn't hear you.
Councilor Mayer.
I'm a nay. Oh, Mayor.
Councilor Carl.
Aye.
Councilor Watkins.
Nay.
Councilor Ward Mullen.
Aye.
Mayor Ray.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2.
So the motion passes 5-2. Council, we have about 20 minutes before we run into our 10 o'clock deadline.
Mayor, because the ordinance needs to be read probably on 2 different occasions, you may want to have the first reading of the ordinance.
Oh, sorry about that. So let's have the first reading of the ordinance tonight. We have a motion for the first reading.
Motion for the first reading.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Ordinance number 2020-727, ordinance rezoning certain property located within the city limits of the city of Carlton. Please note that that the passage of this ordinance would include the condition of approval, additional condition of approval of a 25% multiple family development in the in the R3 portion of the zone change as set forth in the MX zone.
And do we need a roll call vote again for that?
Roll call.
Do we need a roll call vote again?
Yes, we need a roll call for that.
Do we need a motion to adopt?
Yes.
Sure.
Move to adopt ordinance number 2020-727.
Second.
A motion and a second. We'll do a roll call vote.
Councilor Rhodes.
Aye.
Councilor Wilder.
Aye.
Councilor Mayer.
Nay.
Councilor Carl.
Aye.
Councilor Watkins.
No.
Councilor Ward Mullen.
Aye.
Mayor Ray.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-2.
Okay. Anything else with that, Walt?
No, since it was not a unanimous vote, you'll set this over for your next next council meeting
Okay, so September 1st, we'll
for a second reading.
We'll do the second reading. Okay, council, are we good to keep moving? Okay. Parks Plan Amendment Public Hearing, ordinance number 2020-728.
Mr. Mayor, this was taken up by the council last at a work session, and the discussion centered around any final changes or modifications to the listings of possible projects by park. And so tonight, we're hoping that if there are any recommended changes, that those be put forward by the council members. And if not, that we can move on with the public hearing and move to adopt.
Yes, actually, I do have two recommended changes. Which?
Oh, wait. Tell her you want to open the public hearing.
I have to open the public meeting before we could go there.
Thank you.
Okay, so the public hearing that the city council is about to open will be conducted using a legislative process. The legislative process is used when amendments would apply generally to the entire community. The purpose of the city council's public hearing is to consider amendments to the city of Carlton's comprehensive plan. At the conclusion of the city council public hearing, the city council may either approve with revisions, deny, or take no action on the proposed amendments. If amendments are approved, the city council will adopt an ordinance providing an effective date for the amendments. The public hearing proceeds first with the staff report. This report is considered part of the record. After a summary of the amendments is presented, interested parties will be given an opportunity to testify. Any party testifying before the council must give their name and address for the record. The public hearing is now open, and we are ready for the presentation of the staff report.
Mr. Mayor, a representative from the Council of Governments is here this evening, and she can give a quick overview. Although the council has had this for some time and should be very conversant with what the staff report is. So McCrae, if you're there.
I am here. I'd offer, I came into this at the end, so I'm just here really to answer any questions. The master plan started about a year and a half ago. The comprehensive plan started, and it came to Planning Commission hearing in February of this year, and Planning Commission recommended approval with a few changes of adding a map showing half and half mile radius along the existing parks, add a half baseball court to the list of future needs to Hahn Creek Park, and remove the RV parking for the list of future needs for Wennerberg Park. And then you all held a hearing on May 5th, at which time you requested a work session that we had with you. Lisa Bronson, the planner, the previous planner that was working with you, held a work session with you last month. At that time, you as a council directed staff to amend the buffer map to include boundaries showing the future parks land. And that is all the work to date that we have on record. And so I think if there are additional comments or amendments that you all would like to make, we can talk about them and we can see what we can do to help.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Move on to the open the public testimony. Are there any proponents of this park plan that would like to speak? Please digitally raise your hand.
There are no raised hands at this time.
Okay, we have no raised hands. We'll move on to opponents. Do we have any raised hands?
There are no raised hands at this time.
There are no raised hands. Any neutral or undecided?
There are no raised hands.
Okay, there are no raised hands, so I'm assuming there will be no rebuttal. So now we will close the public testimony portion of the hearing. Do I just need to read that again, the close or continue?
No, that was just the one.
Okay. So we will close the public hearing and record. Any final comments from staff and recommendation? None? All right, council, this is your turn to, Linda, you said you had some revisions you'd like to make?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry to be difficult about this, you guys, but I just have been spending a month thinking about this. All too often when things get left on for convenience or for some other reason, with no intention of it actually being done. Somewhere down the line, somebody will look at it and go, well, it's been in there for 20 years, so we should go ahead and do it. So I really, really would like to remove the dedicated dog park, which is on page 4-4. I would like that stricken. And as far as the access road paving.
Okay, wait. I'm sorry, Linda. Let's just do this one thing at a time. And
sorry.
Why don't you go ahead and make a motion for that, and we'll move through that.
Okay, so I need to make a motion that we remove the dedicated dog park from Winterberg Park.
Okay.
That works?
Sorry, is there a second?
Yay, Shirley, I second that.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. That motion carries. We'll make that amendment. And your next one, Linda?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The other one is on that same future needs, the access paving road. I was never sure with the discussion if that was Grant Street we were talking about or the road around the park. If it's the road around the park, then I would like to make a motion to remove access paving road or paving access road.
Okay. Would it be possible to make that so it's not all the way around the park, but maybe down into the parking areas if we chose to pave that at some future point?
Well, yeah, we're already going to be paving Grant Street or doing Grant Street down there. We're going to be putting the sidewalk down there. So I didn't know if Grant was considered part of the access road or not.
So maybe the question is, what's the definition of the access road?
Yeah, exactly.
Can I make a suggestion that you just add the word entry to entry access road paving, entry area access road paving, so it's clear it's the part where Grant Street's ending and then it goes down the hill into the park to the parking lot.
Would you like that motion, Linda?
If we're removing the access road paving from the end of Grant Street so that it's only to the end of Grant Street that it is paved, anything after that is unpaved. Let's just remove access. It's getting too complicated. Let's make it simple. I would like to make a motion that we remove access road paving.
Have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd kind of like to come back to this definition of what exactly this is. We're removing something that we don't have a good definition of. So I'm kind of lost. We don't know what it is, but we want it out of there. So I'm still at a loss of what we're talking about here. I mean, I don't know that it covers the entire access road or a portion thereof or whatever. So how can we remove something we don't even know what it is?
So Dennis says he has a definition.
Councilors, the plan for the access road was to access the parking area and pave the parking area there by ball field number 1, and also extend the driving path in a loop around the entire park to reconnect with the parking area on the other side of ball field number 1. If the council's desire is not to have any paving in Winterberg Park, then just simply motion to remove any paving projects in Winterberger Park.
Why don't we just end it at the gate like it is already, isn't it?
No, there's no paving in Winterberg Park right now.
No, at the gate where it opens up to the park.
The gate up by the treatment.
Oh, yes, yes. That's exactly, I think, what Linda was saying too, right there where Grant Street basically.
Let's just leave it as it is then.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so then the motion is to just remove the paving from the plan, and there's a second. Is there any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that amendment carries. Linda, anything else there?
No, that's it. I'll leave you alone now.
Thank you, Linda.
Thanks.
Anybody else have anything they'd like to suggest for changes? If not, we'll take a motion to adopt with the changes.
Can you just do a motion to, you have an ordinance here, a motion to approve first reading?
Motion to approve first reading.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Ordinance number 2020-728, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Carlton amending the Carlton Parks Development Plan.
Move to adopt ordinance number 2020-728.
Second.
A motion and a second. We'll call for a roll call vote.
Okay. Counselor Rhodes,
Aye.
Counselor Wilder,
Aye.
Counselor Mayer,
Aye.
Counselor Carl,
Aye.
Counselor Watkins,
Aye.
Counselor Ward Mullen,
Aye.
Mayor Ray.
Aye.
Motion carried.
All right.
Mayor, on this one, you've had a unanimous vote, so if you choose, the council can have a second reading tonight.
We have a motion for a second reading.
Move to
So
approve
moved.
second reading. All right.
I have two motions. We'll call it a motion.
Maybe one.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Second reading.
Ordinance number 2020-728, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Carlton amending the Carlton Parks Development Plan.
Roll call vote.
Counselor Rhodes,
Aye.
Counselor Wilder,
Aye.
Counselor Mayer,
Aye.
Counselor Carl.
Question, did we have a motion?
Yes.
We moved to adopt?
Yes.
Okay, I missed that altogether. Aye.
Counselor Carl, do you have a vote?
Aye. Again?
Counselor Watkins,
Aye.
Counselor Ward Mullen,
Aye.
Mayor Ray.
Aye.
7-0 passes.
All right. So I know we've been up late. It's 10 minutes to 10. You want to power through the rest of this, or do you want to continue this meeting?
Well,
I can power through.
I think we should at least power through the COPS grant determination and the surplus of equipment, at least get through that.
Well, we also have the ODOT ballot we need to discuss tonight as well. So go ahead, Linda.
I guess knowing what you've got planned, could we continue the meeting and jump ahead and discuss what the topic that you were bringing up, Brian?
Well, we have to do the COPS grant tonight
Okay.
because it's time sensitive.
Okay.
So let's get through. So the NHMP addendum, we'll put off until next month. The police surplus vehicle, we can put off till next month.
Let's do the police vehicle and radio purchase and the COPS grant.
Okay.
Where we're at.
So let's do the police vehicle and radio purchase.
Ask Kevin if he's still-
Kevin, are you still on?
I am, Mr. Mayor. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. As the police department has declared or is pending to declare two older vehicles as surplus equipment, there is a need to replace these vehicles with an updated patrol practical vehicle that meets the police department's current day needs and liability prevention. Two remaining Dodge Charge police vehicles are 8 years old and started to see an increase in maintenance and repair costs. The new vehicle will allow for more storage and necessary emergency-related equipment, as well as provide more space for anyone taken into custody. This will aid in preventing injury to these individuals as they are placed into and taken out of the vehicle. The new vehicle and one of the Dodge Chargers will be used as the primary patrol vehicles. The second Charger will be utilized by reserve officers for special events and other assignments. In addition, it will be used as a backup vehicle when primary vehicles are out for repair and or have maintenance related issues. Included in this purchase is our radios for the vehicles and for our officers. McMinnville Police Department switched to an encrypted radio system for their primary channel. This prompted a countywide change and the need for other law enforcement agencies in Yamhill County to purchase new radios that could adequately meet overall interoperability and communication between all agencies. Newburgh-Dundee Police Department, Yamhill County Sheriff's Office, and the Yamhill Police Department have all made this change and furthering the critical importance of this purchase. Staff obtained 3 quotes for the project, with Wireworks providing the lowest quote of $144,835.46. This is a 3-year lease purchase at a cost of $50,955 after the third year per year. After the third year, the city will purchase the vehicle outright for $1. The staff respectfully recommends the council approve and accept the quote from Wireworks for the purchase of a police vehicle and radio.
Mr. Mayor? Yes, we've also set up a very good financing plan, and Christy's done that. Christy, could you just take 30 seconds and talk about that financing plan?
So the chief submitted 3 different leasing opportunities, and it actually came under budget. Council and budget committee adopted $53,000 for the annual payment. He was able to get a deal by combining some of his equipment with the Newburgh purchase, and also with the Yamhill County Sheriff's Office. So it is a good opportunity to get his equipment up under budget.
Okay. Council? Motion to approve?
Move to.
Go, Amy.
All right. Moved that we accept the quote provided by Wireworks of $50,955 each year for a purchase of a police vehicle and radios.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. The COPS grant acceptance. Kevin?
All right. Are you ready, Mayor?
I'm ready.
Okay. In 1995, the Carlton Police Department had 2 sworn officers serving a population of approximately 1,353 in population. At that time, the City Council approved the hiring of a 3rd officer with the assistance of a COPS grant. 25 years later, Carlton's population has more than doubled, and the city has seen a significant increase in housing, businesses, tourism, traffic, and crime-related issues. In 2000, the population was approximately 1,500, and there were approximately 540 households. As of 2017, there were approximately 709 households. Currently, several housing developments are projecting an increase of approximately 102 single-family homes in addition to approximately 22 apartments. There are 125 active business licenses, with 45 of them being licensed for conducting alcoholic beverage-related businesses, such as wine tasting rooms, restaurants, bars, stores, and wine production. The total service calls, officer obligated time investigating crimes and city ordinances, conducting follow-up, conducting extra patrol, and providing cover for other agencies, in addition to other issues in Carlton for the year of 2019 were approximately 2,300. The number of service calls reported during the City Council's February 10th, 1997 meeting for the year of 1996 was 310 service calls and 341 municipal court citations. Staff respectfully request that the council approve the hiring of 1 officer with the assistance awarded to the City of Carlton through the 2020 COPS hiring program.
Council, any questions?
Yes. Chief, could you speak a little bit to the amount of of how this new officer will affect your time, the time of the officers, and how much more time they're going to be available in town for calls?
Absolutely. So we anticipate that the coverage, for the most part, will be from 8 a.m. in the morning until about 3 a.m. in the morning. And, that's obviously taking into consideration trainings, vacations, and things like that, that those schedules might modify. But again, we will modify our schedule with the three remaining officers if somebody takes time off or is gone away on training to complement and supplement the most critical hours of the day. We want to implement a more enhancement related to traffic, as that seems to be one of the issues that consistently comes up as the highest issue in our community.
Thank you.
Then,
Sorry. I said thank you.
Oh,
To his last
did
comment.
you want
Sorry.
more?
I was talking to myself.
And we want to incorporate a citywide neighborhood watch program so that we can more effectively work with the citizens and identify issues and problems within specific neighborhood watch programs. But it'll bring a collective, this collective city together with that full neighborhood watch program implemented. So that'll provide additional manpower, or allow us to be able to implement that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions?
I don't have a question, just a comment. That I had the opportunity to meet with Chief Martinez. We had an extensive meeting, which I very much appreciated. I highly recommend that any counselors that haven't yet met with Chief Martinez one-on-one, that it's, a good idea to do it. I learned a lot of information. And one of the things that I brought up with the chief is that when we do, subject to approval of hiring a new officer based on this COPS grant, that we, because after my review of the statistics, it's clear, and if you review the statistics, the percentage leans very highly towards issues that involve social issues like mental health, abuse, domestic abuse, child abuse, etc. And I told Chief Martinez that it would be great that when we look to find a candidate, that we make every attempt to find a candidate who has perhaps a background in those areas, either by education or training or past job experience, etc. So anyways, just a comment.
Thank you, Shirley. Anyone else have any?
I have an additional comment. Just for clarification, we're talking here about a grant of $125,000, but I noticed in the language that it's actually a matching grant, and so we have to put up $195,000 for that. So that sounds to me like we're still in a $70,000 deficit. Can you get some clarification on that?
Yeah, I'll let Christy speak to that.
So what they do is when you apply for the grant, you do an estimated cost over a 3-year period. It isn't a true match. They are actually awarding $125,000, which covers about 81 to 82% of a starting officer's salary. The city will be taking on the benefits, depending on who they hire. It could range anywhere from 25 to 45% for benefits and retirement system. And that is what that 195 is. It's not a true match.
And that 195 is not all up front. That's over time.
That's over a 3-year period, and depending on who's hiring, it's just we will be taking our financial obligation for the city partner.
And are we considering hiring this officer just for the 3 years that this grant is applicable?
In this particular grant, they will pay for a 3-year period. The city is obligated to have the officer for a 4th year. That's the condition of that grant.
Yeah.
We'll have additional, in addition to the 70,000, we'll be having additional funds for his salary, his or her salary, the 4th year.
Correct.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to point out that the recommendation to hire a 4th officer is not coming forward to the council simply because we got a COPS grant, but it is, as Shirley pointed out, it is clear that the growth and needs of the city with regard to law enforcement would benefit from a 4th officer. So yes, the city is making that commitment financially to hire a 4th officer. We do not have plans to make that only a temporary hire.
We just approved 2 subdivisions that are going to bring a couple of hundred people into town. I think they probably need the help.
Any other comments, questions? I would like to add something just quickly. I know there's been a lot of conversation lately around police and policing in communities. And in several conversations that I've had around Yamhill County, I have heard a lot of people talking about how Carlton should be the model for the way the rest of the Yamhill County goes because of our community policing efforts and because of Kevin and his team. And I think that's a very positive thing to be hearing from around the county. Also, I would just like to add that when the state was looking at the new regulations for police officers last week, the legislative hearing, they actually invited Kevin to come and speak to the legislators because of who he is and what he's doing here in Carlton. So I think that speaks well of our police department and our community. So is there a motion?
Yeah, I move that we approve the COPS grant.
Second.
Third, fourth.
A motion and a couple of seconds. Any more discussion?
Mayor, just to confirm that motion includes the authority of the mayor to sign the grant agreement.
Right. I'm tired, Walt. Yes.
Thank you, Walt. All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Considering the late hour and the fact that most of my staff have been here for more than 14 hours today, I would suggest that the remaining items on the schedule be pushed off to the next council meeting with the exception of the discussion about the ballot question.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that?
Sure.
Okay. So we'll move on to the Oregon 47 ballot question. I approached Walt last week about trying to put the question of whether to reroute or not actually on the ballot for our citizens, since we have come up to the November election and ODOT has put a pause on what's going on right now. I think it's fair for us to, we had citizens say we should have put it on the ballot, so here we are, we have the opportunity. Walt, do you have anything to add to that?
Mr. Mayor, you contacted me last week and you asked me to check into the feasibility of it. I consulted both the statutes and the Yamhill County Clerk as to the appropriate deadlines. There is a deadline of August 14th for publishing a ballot title in the News Register to provide an opportunity, a statutory opportunity for the ballot title to be challenged in circuit court, which rarely happens, but it's a statutory requirement. The actual deadline for filing the petition with the Yamhill County Clerk is September 3rd, after the period of objection time runs out. This type of measure that has been that we have discussed is not a legislative measure in the sense that you have taken action to adopt, let's say, a bond, a request to sell a bond, and you're referring that to the voters for approval. That's not the type of measure it is. What it is it's called an advisory measure. you're essentially asking the citizens, you want to take their temperature with regard to support or non-support for the concept of rerouting Highway 47 off of Main Street and onto Pine Street and Monroe Street to a point of connection with Yam Hill. And so the key to that is that the council would have to pass a resolution which approves the ballot title, an explanatory statement, and a summary. The summary can be 20 words. The ballot title has to be 10 words, and the summary, the explanation can be somewhat longer. But those three elements of putting a measure before the voters have to be approved by this council by probably the 11th of a week from today, in order to provide time to get the appropriate notice to the News Register for publication on Friday the 14th, which is a publication day for them. So the issue before the council tonight is, do you wish to put an advisory measure on the ballot for the citizens to be able to express their support or non-support for a reroute of Highway 47?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to add to that. That would be the motion, and also to set a special meeting for.
Okay. So the motion would be to have Walt go ahead and prepare the materials, and we will have a special meeting next Tuesday night at 7 o'clock. I would assume it wouldn't take us very long to get through it. So I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. Any more discussion?
A question, if I may. Does this hold any legal teeth, an advisory measure, or is it more just a sense of support?
It is not legally binding on the council, but it's advisory in nature. It is telling the council what the relative support or non-support in the community is amongst the electors who choose to vote. I'm supposed to give legal advice, not political advice. but what I would say is that advisory opinions are pretty powerful when it comes to councils or legislatures ignoring them.
I would also add that what's going on at ODOT is that they're being told that the community doesn't really want the bypass. They don't want the reroute. So this will actually give a very solid stand for ODOT as they move forward one way or the other.
I just like to make a comment. I just feel like I'm taking a step backwards here. That's all I'm going to say. I just feel like we're stepping backwards here a little bit, but I'll go with you. I'll take the ride.
Okay. Anybody else? Is there a motion? Or I made the motion.
I seconded it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Hearing none, motion carries. We will come back on Tuesday of next week at 7 p.m.
I'd like to are there any objections from the council to move these items that we didn't get to tonight, Tuesday night, or would you just prefer to wait till the next regular council meeting?
Can we wait?
Whatever the council's desire.
Well, I have a question about you. One of the things we were talking about tonight was the emergency relief thing. Is that expiring?
Yeah.
Again?
It's not expired. It doesn't expire until we vote to make it expire.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So the question is, do you want to talk about the rest of this next week? We take like a half an hour and go through the rest of this, or do you want to just do the ballot measure next week?
I want to do the ballot measure because that's going to take long enough.
I would suggest that if you don't want to go through the whole list, the other time-sensitive issue here is the buy local emergency grant program that will run out, and we would like to award that grant as soon as possible.
Okay.
We can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, if there's something important, we should do it next Tuesday. But if anything can wait, I'd rather just have it wait if you don't mind.
Great. Thank you.
Sounds
you
good.
for your feedback.
Thank you, everyone, for hanging out. Have a good night. Meeting adjourned.
Good night.